At the age of 4, a fortune-teller declared that I was cursed to bring ruin upon my own parents. So my mother and father sent me away to a remote estate, and for 10 long years, they never once came to see me, never once asked if I was alive or dead. When I turned 14, they brought me back home, only to marry me off. My elder sister from the legitimate line laughed and said, "A silly girl married to a sickly boy, what a perfect match." My parents said, "If this marriage weren't impossible to break off, and if your sister weren't about to marry into a higher family, you wouldn't even be worthy of carrying her shoes. A married daughter is like water poured out, don't come back, whether things are good or bad." Only he held my hand and taught me to write my own name. He taught me that a woman should hold herself with dignity, love herself, strive tirelessly, and never stop reaching upward. 10 years on that estate, and I had long since forgotten what my parents even looked like. My wet nurse would say, "You are the second legitimate daughter of the Wang family. You should have been raised in gold and jade, if only that damned fortune-teller hadn't." And then she'd tear up and curse him through clenched teeth. But because she feared corrupting me, she always stuck to the same few phrases. "That rotten-hearted, black-gutted scoundrel." I would nestle against her, smile up at the sky, and count on my fingers how many days until brother came home, and what rare trinket he might bring me this time. This estate was very, very far from the capital. When I first arrived, the carriage ride had taken several days and nights. Once here, a few fierce old women guarded the gates, saying, "By the master and mistress's orders, you are not to leave." And so they shut me inside this compound for 10 years. I couldn't read. I couldn't compose poetry. I couldn't play the zither or dance. I didn't even know how to work in the kitchen. But my wet nurse would still praise me for being obedient, say that I had a gift for growing flowers, that I was the finest girl in all the world. Brother would say the same, that I was the finest little sister in all the world. Brother was my wet nurse's son. He had come with me to this estate all those years ago. Unlike me, who was forbidden from this and forbidden from that, no one ever told brother what he could or couldn't do. He first followed the hunters from the nearby village into the mountains, learning a whole set of skills. Then he took up work escorting goods along trade routes. By now, he was married with a child on the way, settled down in the village with a home of his own. His wife was the daughter of his hunting master, and the two of them were deeply in love. My wet nurse and brother would be back in just a few days. This trip had been over a month long. It was about time they returned. I looked up at the vast blue sky. It should have been boundless and endless, but I was trapped within these 4 walls. And somehow that made the sky feel small too. I thought of all the things brother told me about when he came home. Rivers and lakes, dense forests, streets bustling with people, lively markets and temple fairs, all kinds of delicious food and curious trinkets. 10 years. My parents never sent for me. They never came to see me. My food and clothing all came from what the estate produced. I never tasted delicacies from land or sea, never wore silk or satin, but they never let me go hungry or cold either. When I was little, I didn't understand what bringing ruin to one's parents meant. When I got a bit older, I overheard the old women gossiping, saying I was a jinx, that they needed to keep their distance lest they catch my misfortune. That was when I understood. People naturally avoid harm and seek benefit. It's only human. My parents and family kept their distance from me. It hurt, but somehow not that much. Because I had my wet nurse. I had brother. This time, brother brought back quite a few interesting things. Among them was a potted camellia that was barely clinging to life. He said it was called 18 scholars or something like that. I had no idea about its elegant name, I just thought it looked pitiful. Carefully, I trimmed its roots, changed the soil, watered it, and set it by the window. I took a small cloth and wiped each of its few remaining leaves, waiting for it to push out new branches and sprout fresh buds. "Nurse, nurse, it's alive." I urged my wet nurse to go tell brother at once. The camellia he brought back, I had managed to keep it alive. Before she left, she touched my face, her eyes red, and said, "I'll be back soon. You stay home and be good." I had tried sneaking out once, a long time ago. When they found me and brought me back, the old women didn't punish me, but they took it out on my wet nurse instead. I couldn't fight them. I couldn't do anything to them. From that day on, I never tried to run away again. Because I knew, if I made a mistake, my wet nurse would be the one to suffer. The day the Wang family sent someone to fetch me, the camellia's leaves were thick and lush. I listened to the man say a great many things, but not a single word stuck in my memory. Because he was lying. He said my parents missed me, that they had specially sent for me to come home. I might not have seen much of the world, but I wasn't truly stupid. I could tell real from fake. My wet nurse, though, was overjoyed. She thought I had finally weathered the storm and seen the sun break through the clouds. I couldn't bear to tell her the truth. This time, going back, I was afraid I'd be trading one cage for another. So I wouldn't let her come with me. I couldn't bear for her to see it, to ache for me and do something that couldn't be undone. Mississippi, why is this? Brother has to travel often for work. Sister-in-law is pregnant, and the little one needs looking after. I'm going home to enjoy a life of comfort, nurse. There's no need to worry. Once I'm settled, I'll send someone to bring you and brother to the capital to reunite with me. On the day I left, just before I stepped into the carriage, I was smiling the whole time. Smiling as if I couldn't wait to go home. As if I were truly, genuinely happy. But once I was inside the carriage, I looked at the camellia sitting in the corner, and the tears finally came, rolling down my cheeks without stopping. Whether I'd ever see my wet nurse and brother again in this lifetime, I didn't know. The road back to the capital was just like the road that had brought me here. Several days and nights passed, and at last, I arrived. There was no warm welcome from my parents. No servants bowing and greeting me at the gate. When I was brought before my mother, she was coming out of the bath chamber. She wore embroidered robes of fine silk, elegant and composed, radiating warmth and grace. A pretty young girl clung to her sleeve, playfully tugging at it and coaxing, "Mother, please just say yes. I'm begging you." My mother laughed and pinched the girl's cheek, gentle and full of affection. All right, I'll do as you ask. Tomorrow I'll have the tailor come to the house and take your measurements for new clothes." "Thank you, Mother. Mother is the best." They carried on, so close, so intimate, as if no one else were in the room. I stood to one side, silent. I thought I would feel hurt. I thought I would grieve. But instead, I watched them calmly, and inside me, nothing stirred. Well, it made sense. I never had a mother's love or a father's care. But I had my wet nurse. I had brother. That was enough. "Is this the little sister?" The girl in the fine clothes walked up to me, her gaze dismissive as she looked me up and down. I was dressed in plain cotton, the clothes were new, but compared to what she was wearing, they might as well have been rags. My mother glanced at me, just one look, and her brow furrowed. The displeasure in her eyes was unmistakable. In a flat, indifferent tone, she said, "Yes, that's your sister." I called out softly, "Mother, sister, enough. Dan Hua, take her over." She paused, then asked, "Is the courtyard next door still empty?" "Madam, young miss," Dan Hua replied, "the courtyard next door is occupied by the young lady from the maternal side. But there's a small courtyard on the east side that's still vacant. Then she'll stay in the east courtyard. Dan Hua, take her there." I didn't know what the east courtyard was, and I had no right to choose or to complain. My mother didn't like me. My legitimate elder sister looked down on me. And Dan Hua, a mere servant, showed me no respect either. It wasn't until we arrived that I understood. This was where all of father's concubine-born daughters lived. The little courtyard I was given wasn't large, just 3 rooms. A musty smell hung in the air. Dan Hua ordered people to clean the place up and directed the servants as they carried my things inside. I stood in the courtyard with my bundle, waiting in silence. People crept by, stealing glances at me before quickly slipping away. No one invited me into their courtyard for a cup of tea or a moment's rest. When the second miss had finished preparing herself, I stepped inside the house. The room, to put it kindly, was sparse and plain. To put it bluntly, it was shabby. But I didn't mind. Wherever I landed, I would make do. I was a person of little standing, and my arm was no match for a thigh. Better to stay obedient, keep my head down, and live in peace than to be beaten or forced to kneel in punishment. Before long, Dan Hua arrived with 2 maidservants and an older female attendant, saying they were to serve me and take my orders. I could tell none of them wanted to wait on me, but they had no choice in the matter. I sat in the room for a long while, and no one came in to pour me tea or fetch me water. I heard whispers that this young lady was a jinx, a curse who brought misfortune to everyone around her. They didn't want to stay. What if they got caught in my bad luck and died? They wouldn't risk it. The 2 maidservants ran off, but the older attendant eventually shuffled in, bowed, and asked, "Miss, would you like some water?" I shook my head. I didn't intend to make things hard for her. "Go fetch my luggage for me. I have a pot of camellia flowers, bring that over first." She acknowledged and left. Soon, another maidservant arrived, a round-faced girl with proper manners. "This servant, Siue, greets you." I told her to rise. I asked her to bring me some water. The journey had been long and exhausting, and I hadn't had a proper wash. I wanted to clean up and rest for a while. By this point, I was parched and famished. Even at my mother's place, I hadn't been offered a sip of water or a single bite of food before being shooed off to this little courtyard. If I could just sleep, the hunger and thirst would fade. Siue was quick and capable. She soon brought a pot of tea to soothe my throat, then stepped out again and returned with pastries and fruit for me to eat. By the time the older attendant had the camellias and my luggage moved in, the hot water was ready. After I bathed, Siue helped dry my hair. "Miss, your hair is truly beautiful," she remarked. I thought of my wet nurse, who had used so many methods and poured so much care into nurturing this glossy black mane. A happy smile spread across my face. My return had been marked by no welcoming feast. No one in the family had come to see me in person. My mother hadn't sent money for my expenses, nor any gifts of food or treats. I was treated no differently from any other sister in the household, nothing special about me at all. Everyone in the manor knew that I, the legitimate second miss, was not favored by my parents, nor liked by my elder brother and sister, and I had never tried to win their affection. When I'd left, my brother had given me 20 taels of silver, enough to last me a good long while. So I simply waited quietly for whatever fate had in store. About half a month after I returned home, Siue brought back my monthly allowance of 5 taels. I held the silver in my hands and beamed with joy. If I scrimped and saved, I could put aside 60 taels in a year. That would be enough to buy several acres of farmland in the countryside and build a house. I could find someone to send the money to my brother and ask him to make the arrangements for me. If ever I had nowhere else to go, I'd have a place to call my own, a refuge from the misery of drifting and homelessness. Siue suggested I take 1 tael to tip the servants. I looked at her. She waited quietly. "Is it for you all?" I asked. Siue shook her head. "Not for us. It's for the others in the compound, the kitchen staff, the storeroom and accounts clerks, and the people around the madam." As she spoke, her eyes held a hint of pity. I understood why. I wasn't favored, so I had to grease palms and curry favor. Otherwise, my meals would be skimped on, hot water would never reach me, and anything sent from the main quarters would either never arrive or arrive broken. These petty, snobbish people, I couldn't afford to offend them. So I swallowed my heartache and handed the tael to Siue. She took it and left. There was another maidservant who rarely showed her face around me. I didn't bother tracking where she went or what she did. The older attendant, surnamed Huang, kept to her work and never engaged me in idle chatter. The only one I could truly rely on was Siue. She was remarkably capable, excellent with needlework, and she kept my daily life running smoothly. My 3 meals came without fail, though the pastries and snacks were hit or miss. When there were extras, I'd get to eat them. When there weren't, I wouldn't fuss. The real problem was the boredom. Back in the countryside, I could tend to flowers and plants in the courtyard. Here in the Wang Manor, there was nothing I could do. I'd once thought about mingling with my sisters, but the moment they spotted me, They'd hurry away, some even slammed their doors right in my face. I knew they looked down on me. Were they afraid I'd jinx them? I understood I wasn't well liked. So I stopped going out. Every day, I'd sit with my camellias, talk to them, wipe their leaves clean, and watch them grow fuller and more vibrant. That brought me happiness. When Danhua arrived with attendants carrying robes and jewelry, I knew the moment had come, the reason my parents had called me back. The madam has been quite busy and only just remembered you, miss, she said, along with a great deal more words I barely registered. I simply gave a slight nod to show I understood. Danhua paused for a moment, then said, Miss, please rise early tomorrow and dress yourself properly. I'll come to escort you. I stared blankly at the fine silks and ornate hairpins. Siyue hesitated, then hesitated again before finally speaking. Miss, I've gathered some information. The madam brought you back because she wants you to take the first Mrs. place in marrying into the Gu family. I looked at Siyue. The one betrothed to the first miss was the third young master of the Gu family. In his early years, he had been a man of extraordinary grace and brilliance, a name that echoed through the land. He had placed first in all 3 levels of the imperial examinations, and the emperor himself had named him the top scholar. But 2 years ago, during the imperial hunt east of the capital, he had been wounded while saving the emperor. The poison had struck a vital spot, leaving him unable to walk properly. Now he rarely left his home, and when he did, he had to use a wheelchair. After the third young master's accident, the Gu family had come to discuss the marriage. The first miss had refused outright, no matter what. When the Gu family proposed calling the engagement off, the master and madam couldn't bear to lose the connection. That's why they brought me back. A top scholar? I asked, confused. Why me? What about the other sisters in the household? Couldn't one of them do it? You are the legitimate daughter, Siyue said. The rest of her words I understood on my own. The legitimate elder sister refused to marry a crippled man who might die at any moment. My parents couldn't bear to give up the Gu family alliance. After 2 agonizing years, they'd finally given up on her, and remembered I existed. If not for this, they never would have thought of me at all. I hadn't even met the third young master when the legitimate elder sister summoned me. She frowned coldly and demanded, Can you read? What of music? Chess, calligraphy, and painting? I shook my head. She let out a derisive snort. You don't even know the 3-character classic. Then she fell silent, her face darkening. Give me your hand. Confused, I held it out. She seized a wooden ruler and struck my palm. It hurt, so much that tears sprang to my eyes instantly. In the countryside, though I couldn't leave the house, my wet nurse had doted on me. She never scolded or struck me, let alone punished me for no reason at all. Stick out your hand. I rubbed my palms together, refusing to offer them. He barked. Stick them out. You can't even recite the 3-character classic, and you think I can't lay a hand on you? He said I was useless, that I couldn't recite the 3-character classic. Fine. I accepted that, but hitting me for it, that I would not accept. Why couldn't I recite it? Because my parents had sent me off to the country estate, and no one there had ever taught me. If someone had taught me, I would have learned it easily. So what right did he have to strike me? How dare you speak to me like that? You've gone completely wild. He lunged, furious, reaching for my hand. I shoved past him and bolted for the door. Grab her. Someone grab her. I ran like a ghost was chasing me, and I didn't care if the whole household saw. I had done nothing wrong. Was it my fault I was born cursed? Did I beg them to bring me into this world? When they conceived me, did they ask my permission? Did they ask if I wanted them as my parents? Not knowing the 3-character classic wasn't my fault. On that little estate, I had been nothing but obedient. Wang Yuwang, you just wait. Wang Yusin's shriek tore through his grand, sprawling courtyard. It was an ugly sound. So much for the refined young lady of a noble house. She sounded no better than a common shrew. I ran all the way back to my small courtyard without stopping. Siyue was pacing anxiously by the door. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, then froze at the sight of my tear-streaked face. Miss, I looked at her, and the hurt I'd been holding in spilled out in a fresh flood of tears. Let's go inside first. Siue helped me into the little yard. When she saw my swollen hand, she whispered, "The eldest miss did this. Why would she strike you?" She made me recite the 3-character classic. I couldn't. Siue's face twitched. She muttered a curse under her breath. She's terrified she'll end up a widow after marrying third young Master Gu. So she takes it out on you. Hearing that, I finally understood why Wang Yusin had picked a fight today. I hated him. I hated all of them. Siue managed to scrounge up some ice and wrapped it around my hand. But the more we applied it, the more it swelled. "Miss, does it still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt much anymore." I lied. The truth was it hurt so badly I couldn't sleep that night. My whole body burned. Hot and miserable. "Siue, I want some water." Half asleep, she fumbled for a cup and brought it to my lips, then gasped as her fingers brushed my skin. "Miss, you're burning up. I'll go find someone to fetch a physician." I couldn't hold her back. But clearly, no one was willing to come. When Siue returned, her head hung low. "Mississippi, I'm so sorry." "It's all right. It's just a little fever. I'll be fine after I sleep it off." She soaked a cloth in cold water and pressed it to my forehead, replacing it again and again. In my haze, I kept thinking it was Nanny. I called out softly, "Nanny." If I had a choice, I would have stayed in the countryside with Nanny. She loved me. My elder brother spoiled me. That life was 1,000 times better than being back in this Wang household. But I had no choice. I didn't even have the right to resist. By dawn, after sweating through the night, I felt almost normal again, except for my hand, still swollen and turning purple with bruises. I told Siue I wanted congee, and she hurried off. So this morning's breakfast came with an extra bowl of white porridge and a dish of pickled vegetables. After breakfast, Dan Hua arrived. Seeing that I hadn't changed my clothes or done my hair, her face darkened with displeasure. "Second Mississippi, come, let me fix you a beautiful hairstyle." I didn't move. Siue nudged me. I let out a quiet sigh. I knew that if I defied them, I might escape punishment, but Siue would pay the price for me. So I rose and sat down before the mirror. The hairstyle Danhua arranged was far too mature for my age. My face, still carrying the softness of childhood, couldn't support such an elaborate coiffure, nor the ornate hairpins that came with it. She offered a few hollow compliments, then gave up. "Second miss, let's go." I was led to the front courtyard, but not into the main hall. Instead, I was made to wait in a side room, only to be summoned when father or mother sent for me. Danhua kept peeking out the door. Siue fussed endlessly over my clothes and hair, her nervousness plain. Several times, she seemed on the verge of speaking, then stopped. I knew what she wanted to say. The clothes didn't fit. The hairstyle and ornaments were all wrong. But I had no choice. Did I? Since I'd returned, father and my elder brother hadn't seen me at all. Mother had seen me once. My elder sister had seen me twice, once to look down on me, once to humiliate and beat me. Sometimes I couldn't help but wonder, why did I obey them? Why did I let them push me around? But what else could I do? Second Mississippi, the master and mistress request your presence. I rose and walked slowly. The sound of laughter grew louder with each step, until it nearly split my eardrums. When I appeared at the entrance of the main hall, everyone inside turned to look at me. Their gazes swept over me without shame. Then they whispered to one another, judging me from head to toe. "Third brother." Look, I followed the voice and saw him. Seated in a wheelchair. Third young Master Gu Chengyan. His eyes met mine, warm, gentle, even carrying something like pity, compassion. My mind went blank. A jumble of noise. Then I heard Mother's voice. "What are you doing standing there? Come greet your elders." I stepped forward silently and performed the bow. I didn't even address anyone by name. I caught the flicker of disgust on my parents' faces. Several of the Gu elders furrowed their brows. No need for such formality. They clearly thought little of me. Second miss of the Wang family. Is that Gu Chengyan's voice? I looked at him. He smiled gently and asked, May I speak with you alone for a moment? I didn't know what to say. I never had a choice. Mother laughed lightly and interjected. Why don't you take young Master Gu and second miss to the pavilion for a while? The flowers are in full bloom, enjoy the view and have some tea. The brocade-clad young attendant pushed Gu Qingyan's wheelchair, glancing back at me from time to time. He leaned in and whispered to his third brother. She looks so young. Third brother, are you really going to marry her? Gu Qingyan said nothing. At the pavilion, he sent everyone away. It was just the two of us. He gestured for me to sit, so I sat. He didn't ask questions, so I didn't speak. Is this dress newly made? I nodded. Mother had Danhua bring it over yesterday. He smiled. It suits you. You look very nice. How old are you? I turned 14 in March. And you? 22. I paused, counting on my fingers. How many years is that? I racked my brain and still couldn't figure it out. 8 years older than me. Same age as my elder brother. He nodded. You lived in the countryside before. I nodded. Do you know how to read? I shook my head. The memory of my swollen, bruised palm from yesterday surfaced, and I asked quietly, you know a lot of characters, don't you? More than most people. Some. Can you recite the 3-character classic? Yes. Would you recite it for me? He looked at me, curious. Why? I sat up straight and said with all the seriousness I could muster. Yesterday, my legitimate elder sister summoned me and demanded I recite the 3-character classic. But I couldn't. So she took a ruler and beat my hands until they swelled. I held my hand out for him to see, pale and tender, the swelling and bruises standing out all too clearly against the skin. You recite it for me. I said. I'll listen carefully and remember. Next time she asks, I'll be able to recite it, and then she won't be able to hit my palms anymore. But that wasn't the real reason. I just wanted this third young Master Gu to know, my legitimate sister was wicked to the core. Siue had said he was very, very good, and since he was very, very good, my legitimate sister didn't deserve him. Did you have no teacher in the countryside to teach you to read and write? I shook my head. In the village estate, it was just me and my wet nurse, plus the old woman who watched over me. None of them could read. I paused, then asked seriously, are you here to meet me for marriage? Do you want to marry me? But I haven't even had my coming-of-age ceremony yet. I'm still young. My wet nurse said that before the ceremony, a girl is still a child. Only after it does she become a young woman, eligible for marriage and betrothal. Third young Master Gu didn't answer my question. Instead, he asked, and you? Looking at me as I am now, would you be willing to marry me? I thought about it carefully for a long while. After marriage, would I be allowed to leave the house? Would you teach me to read and write? Would you ever hit people? Could you bring my wet nurse and my elder brother to live with us? Third young Master Gu laughed. Then he said, do you know that I cannot walk properly? The imperial physician said that without the antidote, I may not even have a few more years to live. I shook my head. I truly didn't know any of that. No one told you. Since I was brought back, I've only seen my mother once. Today is the first time I've met my father and the other sisters who live in the same courtyard. Third young Master Gu fell silent. He leaned to the side and rummaged through a cloth pouch hanging from his wheelchair, pulling out a small porcelain jar. He held it out to me with a gentle expression. This is a salve for bruising and pain. I've used it a few times myself. If you don't mind, I'd like to give it to you. Of course I didn't mind. My palms were burning with pain. It was truly unbearable. I took it immediately and smiled at him, brighter than I had all day. Third young master, thank you. It was nothing. Second young lady, no need for courtesy. Third young Master Gu looked at me so long that my face flushed with heat. I didn't understand why he was staring with such deep thought, as if he were weighing some momentous decision. After a long moment, he spoke again. Second young lady, this meeting between us is indeed about marriage. If you do not wish to marry, I will inform the elders and have the engagement called off. I gripped the porcelain jar tightly in my hand. Third young master, I cannot refuse. When I was 4 years old, I was sent away. For 10 years, they didn't ask after me once. Now they've brought me back, and it's only to marry me off. My parents will never allow me to refuse. If you were to reject me, then either I'd be sent back to the estate and locked away until I die, or I'd be married off to just anyone. Being married off to just anyone would be the better outcome. But if they gave me to some old man as a concubine, that would be a pit of fire, a wolf's den and a tiger's cave all at once. But what choice do I have? An arm can't twist past a thigh. When I came back, I came alone. The 2 maidservants and 1 old woman by my side, their slave contracts aren't in my hands. Plainly speaking, I'm still all alone in this world. On the estate, I couldn't read a single character. My legitimate sister tried to corner me by demanding I recite the 3-character classic, something I'd never even studied. How could I recite it? And so she beat me without even asking why. Last night, I fell ill. I was burning with fever, barely conscious. Siyue went out to find a physician but couldn't. And today, not a single person has asked me if I'm feeling better. The clothes I'm wearing don't even fit, they're far too big. The hairpins look pretty from a distance, but the color is already fading. They've ignored me for 10 years. Now they bring me back only to marry me off, without ever asking if I'm willing. I don't resist because I still owe them for giving me life. But after I marry, I won't be coming back here again. Third young master, if you have no one in your heart, then choose me. I don't eat much. I have no demands for clothing. I won't throw petty tantrums. Though I'm not a proper lady who can play music, play chess, paint, or compose poetry, I do know how to garden. I'm excellent at growing flowers and plants, anything green that comes into my hands thrives. Third young master Gu asked. You weren't eager before. Why have you suddenly changed your mind about marrying? If I don't marry you, I don't know what will happen to me. I could be sent back to the estate, or married off to anyone at all. Or worse, given to some decrepit old man as a concubine. I'm afraid. I'm terrified I'll never see my wet nurse or my elder brother again. You said you're poisoned and don't have long to live. Then while you're still alive, I'll take care of you with all my heart. And when the time comes for you to go, say a few good words for me. Allow me to live on my own, or let me enter a convent to cultivate in peace. At least I can live with some dignity, without being shackled by my parents' so-called kindness of raising me. The garden was filled with the fragrance of flowers on every side. A gentle breeze drifted through, carrying the scent to my nose. I said no more after that. Third young master Gu was silent for a time. Then, after a long while, he rose from his wheelchair and bowed to me. Second young lady, your words move me. I sincerely accept this engagement with you. After we marry, I will teach you to read and write. Before I die, I will arrange a secure path for you, so that you may live your life free from anyone's control, at peace and at ease. I couldn't stop my eyes from turning red at his words. After my wet nurse and my elder brother, he was the first person I felt would truly treat me well. Then you must live for many more years. I said. Find the antidote soon. Even better, live to a ripe old age. The day my engagement to Gu Qingyan was settled, Wang Yusin burst into my room. She smashed a great many things to pieces, then pointed at me and screamed, You're worthy. You're worthy. She wanted to hit me, but someone held her back. I shrank into the corner, trembling with fear. After her rage subsided, she let out a cold laugh. One of you is a fool. The other a sickly cripple counting down his days. You're a perfect match. I wanted to argue, but Siyue clamped her hand firmly over my mouth. We both knew, the moment I spoke a single word in my own defense, the beating Siyue and I would suffer today would be unavoidable. As Wang Yusin was leaving, she said, Do you think that just because you've come back and married Gu Qingyan, you're the second miss of the Wang family? Do you think father and mother will love you? You're nothing but a cursed star who brought misfortune to your own parents. No one will ever love you. I didn't agree with her. I had never hoped for my parents' love. What did it matter whether they loved me or not? It wasn't as if I had no one who loved me. I had my wet nurse. I had my elder brother. They cherished me. After the engagement was settled, my position in the Wang household didn't improve at all. I remained invisible. My mother never called me over to give me instructions or advice. I heard that the steward was arranging my dowry. Whatever he gave would be whatever I got. I wouldn't fight for more. I knew that fighting wouldn't get me anything anyway. A seamstress came from the clothing shop to take my measurements, and later sent over a set of wedding garments that could be considered passable. There was no talk of marrying off a daughter with any grandeur. The Gu family, on the other hand, seemed to be in a hurry. So my wedding day was set for the 2nd day of the 10th month, just 3 months away. Every day, I sat in my room, staring at the camellia flowers. April was busier than I was, running in and out gathering news. Until August 13th arrived. Mother sent Danhua to tell me that on Mid-Autumn Festival, I was to stay in the courtyard and not go anywhere. The other sisters in the household had new clothes to wear, but I didn't. They could eat mooncakes. They could reunite with father and their concubine mothers, but I couldn't. April was indignant on my behalf, but I truly couldn't care less, because I didn't really want to go anyway. No new clothes, no mooncakes, it didn't matter. Once I married and left this house, I'd have repaid this debt of life, and they'd be no different from strangers to me. Why trouble myself with needless worry? On the morning of the 15th, Gu Qingyan sent someone to deliver mooncakes to me, many different flavors, along with a small bottle of osmanthus wine, an osmanthus sachet, and a tiny painting of osmanthus blossoms. When the moon climbed into the night sky, April and I sat eating mooncakes and sipping wine. I held up the painting and praised it with all sorts of nonsense, then clutched the sachet and slept more soundly than I had in ages. I had no presence in this household, whether there were joyous occasions or funerals. None of it concerned me. Only Gu Qingyan sent food to me every few days, and occasionally a small painting with a flower or two, all sorts of colors, quite lovely to look at. I didn't care whether she'd painted them herself. I only needed to remember that she was good to me. I wanted her to live a long life, so I prayed for her every single day. April laughed at me for being superstitious and odd. I smiled and didn't argue with her. My wishes didn't need to be known by the whole world. Whether my heart was sincere, that was something I knew for myself. When September 27th came, only a few days before my wedding, Mother summoned me. I performed the proper bow and stood at a distance from her. She studied me for a long while before saying, "You are not worthy of the 3rd young master of the Gu family." I looked at her. Was I born unworthy? Or was I unworthy because I never had the chance to try? Or was he the one who was more sinful, born but never nurtured, born but never taught? I pressed my lips together and said nothing. If this marriage couldn't be called off, and your elder sister is about to marry into a high family, those concubine-born girls are too lowly to be presented, it never would have fallen to you. A married daughter is like water thrown out. Once you're wed, you follow your husband. Don't come running back to this house for every little thing. The Wang family doesn't welcome you. I nodded. Rest assured, madam. I've noted your words. What did you call me? Madam Wang's voice turned shrill. I looked at her, confused, and asked back, "Isn't that what you meant? You can despise me, abandon me, but I can't give up on you." Madam Wang drew a few deep breaths. Truly a debt-collecting demon, without a heart. She waved me off. "Go. Your second aunt will teach you what to do next." As I left the room, I heard her mutter, "If I'd known, I should have drowned you back then. All these years, I've truly raised a white-eyed wolf. Even a dog I raised would wag its tail at me. But I am not a dog. I am a person. I have 7 emotions and 6 desires. I may lack education, but I have a heart that can understand, eyes that can see, ears that can hear. You reap what you sow." She never gave me a shred of motherly love. Why should I grovel and beg like a dog? The first time I met my second aunt, she tried to make excuses for Madame Wang, saying something about her poor health. I just smiled at her, smiling especially sweetly. My second aunt was silent for a moment, then sighed. "It'll be better once you're married." "Yes, it'll be better once I'm married." Gu Sangongzi said he would teach me to read and write, and even if he died, he would arrange a secure path for me. Once I married, I would no longer be a member of the Wang family. I would have no connection to them at all. My dowry wasn't much, but for someone like me who had never seen the world, It was already more than enough. My second aunt looked at the dowry list and fell silent again. Second aunt. Is something wrong? Your mother. I don't read either, so I can't make sense of it. But since you'll find out eventually anyway, I won't hide it from you. Apart from the betrothal gifts from the Gu family that you're taking back with you, everything they prepared for you is cheap and shoddy. It's fine. Madam said that once I marry, she won't have anything more to do with me. Throwing meat buns at a dog, who would want to do that? She only sent me far away back then. She didn't strangle me to death. I'm already grateful for that. From now on, we're strangers. Why hold on to resentment? My accompanying maids had been bought from outside, never properly trained, let alone taught any rules. My second aunt's face darkened. Yuan, I'll give you a set of dowry properties. Second aunt, I don't have any estates or shops to manage, and I don't have silver on hand. I can't afford to support too many people. Besides, Madam didn't give me their deeds of sale. Once I marry into the Gu family, I'll send them back. Second aunt, the only one I truly can't bear to part with is April. If you could help me get her deed of sale, I would remember your great kindness for the rest of my life. My second aunt did get April's deed for me. She also managed to get the deeds for the 4 maidservants and 2 matrons. On the day of my wedding, my dowry procession was small. My sisters kept their distance from me. Madam Wang didn't give me any estates, shops, or silver to line my trunk. Master Wang and his 2 sons looked at me with cold eyes. And I didn't call out to them either. Only my second aunt secretly slipped me a 1,000-tael banknote, telling me to keep it safe for emergencies. When it was time to leave, there was no brother to carry me out on his back. Gu Chengyan did come to escort the bride, but his legs were too weak to carry me. The ceremony of receiving the father's and mother's instructions was skipped. When I bid farewell to my parents, they recited a few dry, hollow words and told me to be on my way. It was the matchmaker who carried me out. When I reached the main gate, someone shouted. It was my brother's voice. I wanted to lift the veil and see if he had come alone, or if Nanny had come too. The matchmaker pressed my hand down and stuffed me into the bridal sedan. Amid the firecrackers and Swana horns outside, my brother shouted twice more, our secret signal. I couldn't hold back the tears that welled up. I wanted to call back twice, but then I remembered I was the bride now. I couldn't make a spectacle of myself, though I was already a spectacle in my own right. I didn't care about being a joke as Wang Yunwan, because that joke wasn't of my own making. I had done nothing wrong. It was the Wang family's narrow-mindedness. That was their fault. But once I stepped through the Wang family's gate, I was Gu Shi. I couldn't tarnish Gu Qingyan's name. The sedan swayed all the way to the Gu residence. Firecrackers and Swana never stopping. The matchmaker helped me out of the sedan, and I gripped the red silk ribbon tightly, stepping over the brazier of fire, following the footsteps ahead of me step by step. Then came the wedding ceremony. 3 bows, one to heaven and earth, one to the ancestors and elders, then the husband and wife bowing to each other. The rites were complete, and I was led to the bridal chamber. Gu Chengyan walked with me a few steps, then sat down in a wheelchair. I could hear his pained, labored breathing. Between San Gongzi, husband, and San Yi, I chose San Yi. San Yi, are you all right? It's nothing. I never expected that he had prepared something for me, a palanquin. Have the 4 matrons carry me to the bridal chamber. Later, I asked her why she made that arrangement. She said, I get to be lazy with my wheelchair. Why should I make you walk all that way? He wasn't being lazy. He was in pain. But even so, she had married me into the Gu family with all due splendor. Because of his condition, no one came to disturb the bridal chamber, and I wasn't left sitting alone for long. Back in the bridal chamber, I lifted the red veil off my head and asked Siyue to help me take down the phoenix crown. The crown had been a gift from Gu Chengyan, and when it arrived, I was completely stunned. It was so beautiful that I had slept holding it for several nights. The festive dress, however, had been prepared by the Wang family. I took it off and had Siyue lock it away in a chest, not wanting to see it again. After changing into lighter clothes, I sat nervously beside Gu Chengyan and whispered, My elder brother has come to the capital. The one who shouted a few times earlier. I nodded. Gu Qingyan called in a servant and instructed him to go check the main gate. If he saw the man, he was to invite him in for the wedding feast. I couldn't arrange for him to have a seat at the head table. It didn't matter. The fact that my brother could enter the Gu residence to attend my wedding banquet already made me overjoyed. Of course, if I could see him even once more, I wouldn't dare to hope for anything beyond that. After the meal, Gu Qingyan said, "From now on, this courtyard will be yours and mine. The front courtyard is separated from yours by just a garden. If you need anything, send a maid over, or you can come yourself. As for learning to read and write, I'll arrange that in a few days." I nodded eagerly, and I could feel the light shining from my own eyes. Grinning like a fool. Third master, thank you. Gu Qingyan did not share the room with me that night. I slept alone. The room was spacious and bright, with exquisite ornaments that showed taste and thoughtfulness everywhere. The bedding was soft and carried a faint, pleasant fragrance. The maids and matrons I had brought with me were useless. But the matron Gu Qingyan sent over was formidable, not in the sense that she was harsh with me, but rather extremely strict with the servants. Toward me, she was respectful and courteous. If the third young madam is tired, she may rest early. If not, she may read a book. It's best not to go out today. I didn't know how to read. I couldn't even recognize characters. I asked her what I should call her. This old servant's husband's family name is Zhao. I am the third young master's wet nurse. Nanny, is it all right if I call you that? Zhao Nanny smiled so wide her eyes squinted. It's this servant's blessing that the madam honors me so. Gu Qingyan had sent her to serve me, and that was to help me. I wouldn't make things difficult for her, and I certainly wouldn't bite the hand that feeds me. He never tried to impose rules on me or put on airs. In short, on my first day at the Gu residence, I felt completely at ease and happy, and I slept especially soundly. As for the fact that we hadn't consummated the marriage, I didn't take it to heart. I was still young. The next day came the tea ceremony. He was very clear about my dowry. I had nothing valuable to offer. Everything had been prepared by Gu Qingyan. When Zhao Nanny explained it, I memorized it once. Which piece goes to whom? Which piece goes to whom? In order. As long as I didn't make a mistake, that would be fine. The ceremony went smoothly. The Gu family had many members, but they all seemed kind. No one deliberately targeted me. Everyone just told me to live well with Gu Qingyan. My father-in-law and mother-in-law said I only needed to pay my respects on the 1st and 15th of each month. On ordinary days, I could stay in the courtyard or take walks in the garden. This was my home now, and I could be at ease without being too stiff. If they needed anything from me, they would send someone to let me know. On the way back to the courtyard, I looked at Gu Qingyan and smiled. He smiled back gently. So happy. I nodded vigorously. There's something that will make you even happier. I raised an eyebrow, thinking he was going to have me start learning to read and write. But instead, I saw my elder brother in the garden. Brother. I ran over as fast as my feet could carry me, ready to throw myself into his arms. He reached out and pressed his hand against my forehead, stopping me. Brother. I stomped my foot in protest. He laughed. You're married now, but you're still acting like a child. Even if I'm 70 or 80 years old, I'll still be a child in front of you. Sharp tongue. I can't outtalk you. His eyes were full of laughter and affection. He withdrew his hand and pulled a pouch from his chest, holding it out to me. This is the dowry from mother and your sister-in-law. I took it with a smile and opened it to peek inside. Silver. I didn't lack silver now, but I didn't hurriedly hand it back to him either. I thought I'd wait a while and exchange it for something else for him to take back to mother and my sister-in-law. I turned to look at Gu Qingyan. His eyes were warm with a gentle smile. Yuan, let's keep your brother for a meal. We'll set it up in the side hall of my courtyard. What do you think? I couldn't have asked for more. I thanked him quickly. Gu Qingyan tugged at my brother's sleeve and asked in a low voice. Is the family well? How is Nanny? How did you get here this time? How many days do you plan to stay? When will you leave? When will you come again? So many questions. Which one do you want me to answer first? Answer them one by one. Don't skip a single one. I was being bossy. My brother reached out as if to pinch my nose, then stopped mid-air and gently patted my head instead. Back in the Wang family, I had endured so much grievance. But now, my brother treated me exactly as he always had. My nose stung and I nearly burst into tears. My brother was the guest, and Gu Qingyan kept him company. He didn't drink himself, but he kept refilling my brother's cup and asked him where he had traveled while escorting goods. Whatever my brother mentioned, Gu Qingyan could pick up the conversation. When it came to certain places, he was even more familiar than my brother. "You're still doing escort work?" Gu Qingyan asked. It pays better than hunting. This trip to the capital, I plan to pick up some small goods and see if I can sell them back home. If this trade works out, I intend to make a few more trips. Once I've saved up enough silver, I'll move the whole family to the capital. But the capital is expensive and not easy to live in. Do you have a boy or a girl? Gu Qingyan asked again. A little rascal. When he heard I was coming to the capital, he kept insisting on coming along to see his aunt. Listening to my brother talk, I felt both joy and longing. I picked up the serving chopsticks and piled food onto his plate and Gu Qingyan's. Coming to the capital is fine. I have a house outside. It's empty, and you can stay there. If the child needs to start his education, I can recommend a tutor. My brother's hand trembled, spilling wine onto the table. He quickly wiped it up with his sleeve. Brother-in-law, this is too much. How can I accept this? Why not? I've been planning to transfer that house to Yuan's name in a few days anyway. You're her elder brother. What's wrong with the elder brother staying in his sister's empty house? His nephew is my nephew too. Finding a tutor for the boy is nothing more than a simple favor. But, my brother stammered, unable to form words. I, on the other hand, was all smiles. Thank you, third master. Third master, you're truly wonderful. I quickly added more food and soup to his bowl, swearing to myself that I would serve him well from now on and pray to the heavens every day for his long life. Gu Qingyan smiled and said, Yuan, eat too. Brother, make yourself at home. When my brother left, he was practically walking on air. He said to me quietly, treat your husband well. Don't mind his weak health. The way he treats you, that's what truly matters. I nodded firmly. I will definitely live well with Gu Qingyan. I won't let him down. Brother, the camellia I've been tending is thriving. Come January or February next year, it'll be in full bloom. When that happens, you absolutely have to bring Nanny, sister-in-law, and Dewa to see it. And if it turns out to be one of those truly rare, expensive varieties, we'll sell it, turn it into silver, and buy Dewa some brushes, ink, and paper. Good. After my brother left, I figured I ought to properly thank Gu Qingyan for everything. So I asked him if there was anything he needed me to do, like those pots of chrysanthemums in his courtyard that were about to wilt. I could take those off his hands, tidy them up, and by next year, I'd guarantee they'd bloom even better than this year, with bigger flowers. Then I'll be in your debt. Yuan, third master, no need for such courtesy, this is nothing at all. You gave me a path to a new life, a kindness as vast as the heavens, and you even reunited me with my brother and made plans for my future. I want to do something for you in return. I'm not an ungrateful girl, everything you've done for me, I see it, and I keep it in my heart. I don't know if bringing you out of the Wang family and placing you in the Gu family was the right call. Of course it was. I cut off his hesitation and melancholy without a second thought. In the Wang household, did third master know what I ate for my 3 meals? Did he know what my room looked like? Or what my bed felt like? How many maids waited on me? How many new dresses I got? How much my monthly allowance was? My 3 meals were 1 meat dish, 1 vegetable, and 1 bowl of soup, and half the time, it was barely edible. Either the rice was stale or the soup had gone sour. My 3 rooms had furniture that wasn't even complete. The chairs and tables were missing pieces, with obvious patchwork repairs. As the weather turned colder, I was still sleeping under a summer quilt. Thank goodness I arrived when it was warm, or I'd have frozen to death in the winter. I had 2 maids and an old nanny assigned to me, but aside from Siyue, I barely saw any of them. My monthly allowance was 5 taels, and Cue had to make several trips just to collect it. And out of those 5 taels, one had to be handed over as a bribe, or else I might not get my meals or hot water. There were a few other sisters in the same courtyard, but not a single one would befriend me. When I tried to talk to them, they'd shriek like they'd seen a ghost and scatter away laughing. And Wang Yusin, forget it. She'd storm straight into my room and smash my things. If her maids hadn't held her back, she would have hit me too. The Wang family was never my home, and the Wangs were never my kin. Madame Wang said it herself, a married daughter is like water thrown out, and told me not to come back for anything, lest I somehow bump into her and cause harm. If I were truly cursed to bring death to my parents, wouldn't they have been dead within these few months? Nanny and brother both praise me, saying I'm the finest girl. I've always had a gift for growing plants and flowers. Nanny says only those with a kind heart and heaven's blessing can commune with flora and trees. I'm no jinx. But I took a deep breath, knelt down in front of Gu Chengyan, placed my hands on his knees, and looked up at him. Yet aside from Nanny and brother, no one was willing to lend me a hand. Cue always told me to endure, to just bear it, that if I didn't, we'd both be done for. But you reached out and pulled me out of that place. A den of wolves worse than a prison. Third Master, don't blame yourself. Being able to come to your side, I think it's the fortune I've cultivated over several lifetimes. I'm nearly mad with joy. Last night was the most peaceful, restful sleep I've had since returning to the capital. I no longer have to worry about being dragged off as a jinx and burned or buried. These 3 meals, I ate until my belly was stretched round, because it was all so rich and delicious. My eyes glistened as I looked at Gu Chengyan. I rarely cry. Actually, except for the time Wang Yusin slapped my palms, that hurt so much I couldn't hold it in. When the Wangs schemed against me and bullied me in secret, I didn't cry. When the food was bad, I didn't cry, because at least I still had something to eat. At first my allowance was 5 taels, but after a month, it stopped coming, and I still didn't cry, because I knew I'd soon escape that cage. And I still had the 20 taels Nanny and brother had given me for emergencies. But at this moment, I really wanted to cry, especially when Gu Chengyan's large hand landed on my head and gave it a gentle pat, as if to soothe me, as if to pity me. When the tears fell, I hurriedly wiped them away. Why are you crying? Gu Chengyan couldn't help but ask. This wasn't crying, and it certainly wasn't sadness. These were tears of joy, tears of being reborn. My reasoning was as smooth as silk. I was never stupid to begin with. I just lacked experience and had never seen the world beyond those walls. I'd been trapped by the so-called kindness of that household. Gu Chengyan sighed helplessly and pulled out a handkerchief to hand me. If you're happy, then don't weep. A girl crying too often isn't a good thing. I immediately took the handkerchief and dabbed at my tears, saying with utter seriousness, I know, if I cry too much, I'll cry all my good fortune away. I had no intention of making the traditional 3-day return visit to my natal home, and Gu Chengyan didn't bring it up either. But my mother-in-law, Madame Gu, did summon me over to ask a few questions. Madame, she didn't care much for me. Even before the wedding, she'd told me not to come back unless it was absolutely necessary. Third Master's health is fragile, and the journey back and forth would be exhausting. What if he overexerts himself? Perhaps it's better not to go. Madame Gu was silent for a moment before asking, was she truly that cruel to you? I wasn't sure if cruel was the right word. She never hid it from anyone. A little inquiry would reveal everything. I hadn't planned to bring up Gu Chengyan's condition, but since I wouldn't be visiting often in the future, I asked, Mother, how was Third Master injured? Is the poison on him truly incurable? She sighed. It's not that there's no cure, it's that the key ingredient is nearly impossible to find. For the past 2 years, we've sent out countless people and spent a fortune, yet we still haven't found that medicinal ingredient. She told us to stop wasting our efforts. But child, come sit beside me. Let me tell you something. I sat down next to Madame Gu, and she said, you never saw him in his prime, radiant, noble, elegant, with a grace that could charm anyone. If you had, you'd understand. The man he is now has fallen from the clouds into the dust. My poor boy. When tears fell from Madame Gu's eyes, I hurriedly wiped them away. It took so much strength for her to maintain the composure she showed today. That eldest Miss Wang has no heart. The engagement was set by the elders, and it wasn't easy to break, but when Third Lang met with his misfortune, we went to break it off. She refused. Why? Because she was afraid we were deceiving her. She strung us along with every excuse imaginable, and when it became clear that Third Lang truly had no cure, she flatly declared she wouldn't marry him. Hateful. Vicious. I cursed in fury and pounded the low couch in anger. If only I could beat her, I would have fought her myself. Madame Gu actually laughed at that. Thank heavens she was blind. The Wang sent you in her place. We knew the Wang family had another daughter, one sent away for over a decade. I wanted to find a wife for Third Lang, but he insisted on meeting you first, on asking for your opinion. After he saw you, he came home and was silent for 2 days. Then he started having the courtyard cleaned, pulling out all his old books to air and organize. We're not afraid of spending money on him, and we don't believe you're cursed. What we hope for is that after you marry into the Gu family, he'll have something to occupy his days, busy hands and a busy mind, so he has no time for sorrow, and can slowly crawl out of his despair. The poison couldn't be cured, but it could be eased. A sudden ache gripped my chest, a deep, wrenching ache for Gu Chengyan. For all the effort he had poured into me, there had to be a way. If there was no medicinal guide, we would find one ourselves. We could send people into the mountains to dig, post notices offering to buy, and anything rare, anything that had never appeared in an apothecary's shop, we would purchase and bring back for me to cultivate. Mother, I'm very skilled with flowers and herbs. Trust me. I will grow the medicinal guide that can cure Third Master's poison. Madame Gu studied me for a long moment, then pulled me into her arms, patting my back gently. Good, good, good. From now on, I'll entrust San Lang to you. I nodded with fierce determination. Wasn't this just a matter of keeping him busy? I couldn't spend all my days reading and studying, not enough. Not nearly enough. If he was busy, I'd beg him to teach me painting, coax him into taking me out of the estate. We'd turn an entire manor into a place dedicated to growing rare medicinal herbs. There was no need to worry about spending silver. If the herbs grew well, they'd earn back 10-fold, 100-fold, in time. What I hadn't expected was that Madame Gu would hand me a manor immediately. The estate backed against a great mountain, with a stream running before it, over 400 mu of farmland, 1,000 mu of mountain terrain, and 2 forested hills. I'm giving it to you now, she said. Use it to grow your herbs. And I'm entrusting San Lang to you as well. I nodded, stunned into silence. How much silver was a manor this size worth? And it was mine now. It all felt so light, so unreal. When I mentioned it to Gu Chengyan, he laughed softly. Mother is far wealthier than you imagine. And she has no shortage of capable people at her disposal. Nothing about your time in the Wang family escaped her. I blinked. So she had already investigated everything about me. Then why had she even asked me anything? Perhaps to test whether I'd be honest. She hadn't just investigated, she probably knew every detail. There's something else I must tell you, he continued. Regarding your dowry, aside from the betrothal gifts the Gu family sent, the Wang family didn't spend a single coin of their own. The silver for those items came from the Gu family. I had Nanny Zhao estimate it. We gave 10,000 taels. And the Wangs only purchased 5,000 taels worth of goods. What? I shrieked, shooting to my feet. How can they be so shameless? I stormed around the room, stomping my feet, grinding my teeth, cursing their black hearts and rotten guts. I silently damned the Wang family to ruin. May those 5,000 taels buy them their coffins. But oh, the pain of it. I was so aggrieved that I ate an extra half bowl of rice at dinner, which made Gu Chengyan laugh so hard he drank an extra half bowl of soup as well. Since it wasn't a return visit day, no one called me awake in the morning. Nanny Zhao told the maidservants that I was still growing and should sleep as long as I needed. When I finally rose, I tasted bird's nest soup for the first time, sweet, not particularly delicious, but not unpleasant either. The most important thing was that it was my first time having it, and I found myself loving it. Lunch was shared with Gu Chengyan. I devoured my food with gusto while he occasionally picked a bite or two for me with his chopsticks. He ate sparingly, mostly drinking soup, his meals light and plain. Nanny Zhao told me that when he first learned his poison couldn't be cured, he hadn't spoken a single word for over a month. 4 months afterward, he'd only sipped soup, no rice, no meat, until he withered down to skin and bone. It was only later, when he finally made peace with it, that he slowly began to eat again. How pitiful! Such a wonderful man. This third master. I would grow so many rare herbs, and from them, I would cultivate the medicinal guide he needed. I now had a study in Gu Qingyan's courtyard. The brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the desk were chosen by me, personally, when Gu Qingyan took me to the Gu family storehouse. They were colorful and exquisitely crafted. I adored them. Tomorrow was the day of my formal education. I went to bed earlier than anyone, yet tossed and turned, unable to sleep. When I finally drifted off, I woke and asked, "Siue, what time is it? Has dawn broken yet?" I rose earlier than everyone else, dressed and ate with care, then went to sit in the study. When I could no longer sit still, I wandered, touching this and that, wiping here and there with a handkerchief. By the time Gu Qingyan woke, I had already dusted the entire study and washed the inkstone and brush basin several times over. "Third master, let's begin." He stood behind me, taking my hand in his, and guided it across the rice paper to write my name. Yuan. Mo Dao Sang Yuan. Wei Xia Shang Man Tian. He said my name must come from this poem. I didn't understand what it meant, so he explained, "Don't give up halfway. Even in old age, one can still achieve great things." Then he took my hand again and wrote another line. "A woman should hold herself with self-respect and self-love. Strive unceasingly, and press forward with determination. Yuan, these are my hopes for you. I want you to live by these words: self-respect, self-love, relentless effort, and ambition. Because I cannot be by your side for many years, nor can I protect you for a lifetime. Once I'm gone, you'll have to rely on yourself. And the things I leave you, you'll need real ability to hold on to them." I threw my arms around him, burying my face in his chest, and burst into loud, messy sobs. "Then you have to live for many more years. I'm a little slow, I can't learn things quickly. You need to stay alive long enough to teach me everything. You have to be responsible for me." A long silence stretched between us before he let out a soft sigh. "All right." I had Gu Qingyan's calligraphy framed and hung in my room, looking at it every day to spur myself onward. My memory was sharp, and I memorized the 3-character classic quickly. Gu Qingyan only needed to explain the meaning once, and I understood. He said I had natural aptitude, and as a reward, he took me out to play. When I heard we were going out, my eyes went wide and my grin stretched from ear to ear. I couldn't hide it at all. I was brimming with joy and excitement as I rushed to pack, bringing several changes of clothes. We weren't just going out for a day, we were going to stay for a few. I sprinted back to my courtyard, telling Siue to pack quickly, and to bring along some silver as well. Nanny Zhao fussed over me, warning me not to run off once we were outside and to stay close to Gu Qingyan, all while directing the servants to pack boxes. They were busy, but I wasn't idle either. Knowing Gu Qingyan was going to the manor and would likely paint, I made sure to pack extra pigments. The journey involved several carriages, with maidservants, matrons, and guards, dozens of people in all. I sat inside Gu Qingyan's carriage, which was wide and warm, staring at him with sparkling eyes. "Once we leave the city, you can lift the curtain and look outside," he said with a smile. After we passed the city gates, I raised the curtain. Cold wind rushed in, and I closed my eyes, breathing in deeply. There was an indescribable scent in the air. Maybe it was freedom. Or maybe it was joy and happiness. I turned to Gu Qingyan. "Thank you, third master." He smiled, taking a sip of tea, and asked, "Would you like to ride a horse? I don't know how. I'll take you." His servant Qingyue led over a tall, majestic white horse, its eyes glistening as they rested on Gu Chengyan. I thought to myself, the man Gu Chengyan must have once been, so dashing and brilliant. After the incident, he likely never rode again. Today, he was doing it for me. The carriage stopped. Gu Chengyan was tall, and swinging up onto the horse came easily to him, though I suspected it hurt. His brow furrowed slightly, but the expression passed in an instant, replaced by warm, gentle eyes as he reached his hand down toward me. He came in the evening, wanting to ride a horse, wanting to stand up again. I couldn't dampen his spirits at a moment like this, and I certainly couldn't refuse. I reached out and placed my hand in his, and he pulled me up onto the horse, seating me in front of him. "Oh," I gasped. Third master, it's so high up." He urged the horse into a gentle trot. I heard his muffled grunts of pain. "Third master, does it hurt terribly? Can you bear it?" He didn't ride far before reining the horse to a walk, and I leaned back into his embrace, taking his hand in mine. "Third master, you will get better. You truly will. I'm certain you'll recover," Gu Chengyan murmured, his chin brushing against the top of my head. I tilted my head back to look up at him, grinning like a fool. He stared at me, dazed, and only after a long moment called out, "Qingyue, prepare the brush and ink." "Third master, I want to paint." "Yes, just simple black ink on pure white rice paper." A horse. A tall man holding a petite woman in his arms, the woman tilting her head up, the man bending his slightly, both of their eyes carrying smiles, the kind of smile that seemed to see hope, to see the future, pure and clean. "Third master, is this you and me?" "Yes, third master, you painted it so well." I only learned later from Qingyue. Ever since the accident, Gu Chengyan had not ridden a horse, had not held a brush, let alone read or painted. His will had sunk into despair, and nothing could reach his heart. It was me, burning like a flame, slowly reviving the deadened part of him. We were heading to the estate Lady Gu had gifted me. Though it was cold outside, it hadn't snowed yet, and thankfully there had been no recent rain. The muddy road was bumpy, but at least the carriage wheels wouldn't sink deep into the mire, even jostled about. I was happy. Gu Chengyan couldn't always accompany me riding, but I could ask Qingyue to lead the horse. Sitting on horseback, watching the villages, trees, and rivers pass by, I trembled with joy. I had to be brave, learn to ride, not fear falling and breaking a leg, not fear being stepped on by hooves. The feeling of galloping freely on a horse must be absolutely magnificent. We traveled slowly, lodging with farming families along the way. The country folk were simple and honest, and though the food wasn't refined, I found it delicious. Gu Chengyan ate little, still preferring soup. A chicken broth simmered slowly over a low flame, poured over scallion noodles with a handful of fresh greens, perfect as a late-night snack. I could eat a whole big bowl, while he only managed half a small one. He said that in the past, he had been strict with himself, not touching a drop of water after a certain hour, let alone a midnight snack. But now, seeing how heartily I ate, he couldn't help wanting a taste. Living as freely as I did had its own charm. Staying at the farmhouse, the bedding had been changed to my preferred quilts, soft, fluffy, and fragrant. I slept especially soundly. The next day, full of energy, I sat in the carriage facing Gu Chengyan and recited the three-character classic. I already knew it by heart, but he always made me recite it again and again. Read 100 times, and the meaning reveals itself. His maxims came one after another, sounding very reasonable, so I recited. We traveled slowly, and whenever we passed a town, we would stop and stay at an inn. Gu Chengyan noticed my eyes fixed on the world outside the inn and asked if I wanted to go for a stroll. I nodded vigorously. "Settle in first. Then I'll take you out to look around." "Thank you, third master." Our rooms were next to each other. I had planned to wash up carelessly, but Siyue advised me not to. If Gu Chengyan kept himself neat and clean while I stayed sloppy, He might grow to dislike me over time. I thought Siyue's words made perfect sense, though I didn't think I was dirty. Who wouldn't prefer a girl who was clean, fresh, and fragrant? The town was small, with only a few shops. And walking to the end of the street took no time at all. But at the mouth of an alley, an old woman was selling baked flatbreads and wontons that smelled absolutely divine. Third master. I swallowed hard and tugged at his sleeve. Gu Qingyan had Qingyue push him over. We ordered about a dozen flatbreads and several bowls of wontons. Gu Qingyan ate only one bite of flatbread, 2 wontons, and 3 or 4 sips of broth. He rarely praised anything, but he said it tasted good. I, on the other hand, devoured 2 flatbreads and a whole bowl of wontons. If I hadn't been worried about overeating, I would have had more. Granny, do you set up your stall here every day? Yes. I live in the alley just behind. As long as it's not windy or rainy, I'm here. Been doing this for decades now. The old woman smiled warmly as she spoke. Just then, an old man came over with chopped scallions from home, then took the bowls and went to wash them at the side. Clearly, they were an old couple. Granny, are there many people around here who come to town to sell herbs? Tomorrow is market day. The herb gatherers from the nearby villages will all come to sell, and the county pharmacy will be here to buy. It gets quite lively. If you young miss isn't in a hurry, you could stay and join the fun. I looked at Gu Qingyan. He said, then we'll stay one more day and leave the day after. It would be my first time at a market fair, and I was already looking forward to it. Since I'd eaten flatbreads and wontons, I wasn't hungry. But the innkeeper was a shrewd businessman. He said one of the inn servants was skilled at roasting meat and asked if we'd like to try some. Third master, let's try the roasted meat. Gu Qingyan didn't take a single bite. Siyue, Qingyue, and I ate until our stomachs were full to bursting, having to support each other just to walk. It was truly that delicious. I told Gu Qingyan we should roast more tomorrow night, and have it again when we came back through, hoping that by then, he might be able to eat a bite or 2 as well. Seeing us stuffed, Gu Qingyan shook his head helplessly, saying only that we mustn't eat like that again, as overburdening the stomach did no good. I nodded repeatedly. It was just that I'd never tasted such wonderful roasted meat before, and I simply couldn't resist. Greedy and gluttonous, plus genuinely happy, I'd eaten more than I realized without noticing. To avoid indigestion, Siyue and I stood in the room for half the night, standing until we were nodding off. As I lay down, I told Siyue, I truly won't binge eat again. In the morning, the innkeeper prepared chicken porridge, fresh and tender, paired with their homemade pickled vegetables. It was delicious, and I finished 1 bowl. As I reached for a second, Gu Qingyan gave me a mild look. Then I'll just have a small half bowl. Gu Qingyan said flatly, today is market day, and there will surely be all kinds of snacks. Are you certain you still want porridge? Oh, right, how could I have forgotten something so important? It was all my fault for never having been to a market. I didn't even know they sold food there. I slowly set down my chopsticks and spoon, but my heart had already drifted off to that bustling fair. The market wasn't large, yet plenty of folks had come to browse. And the goods on display were things I'd never laid eyes on before. Woven bamboo trinkets so cleverly made they seemed almost impossible. If only I could take them all with me, I'd have bought one of everything. There were toads carved from polished bamboo roots, with little embedded eyes. Each posed differently, and the prices were cheap, too. I glanced at Gu Qingyan and Old Master Yen. Asterisk, can I buy them all? Asterisk, if you like them, then buy them. I noticed something. When it came to food, Gu Qingyan would rein me in, but when it came to these odds and ends, he never objected. The guards trailing behind us carried baskets piled high with the little treasures Gu Qingyan had bought me, a kind of joy I couldn't remember ever having known. A burly man spread his wares out on the ground, claiming they were herbs he'd dug up from deep in the mountains. But no one recognized what they were. A few curious folks asked a question or 2. Yet because the man's asking price was steep, no one bought. I looked at Gu Qingyan. What we lacked most right now was exactly this kind of rare medicinal herb. Qingyue. Qingyue stepped forward at once to ask the price. And curiosity got the better of me. I followed along. This here took me real effort to haul out of the deep woods. The man said, "Come spring. It blooms real pretty. And it's fragrant too. I sold a few batches this year already. But nothing like this. If you fancy it, 2 taels of silver and it's yours." I quickly asked, "What color are the flowers?" "Starts off white with a hint of pink, then slowly turns a deep rosy hue." Gu Chengyan had Qingyue buy it. I pressed on. "You spend all your time in the deep mountains, you must recognize quite a few herbs, right?" "Won't lie to you, miss, I make my living gathering herbs. Sold off the ones I picked a few days back. This thing, though, I can't rightly say what it is. The medicine shops won't take it, so I sell it as an ornamental plant." "Then you must have seen plenty of rare flowers out there. If you come across any again, would you dig them up and bring them out? As long as the price is fair, we'll take them." The man's face lit up with sheer delight. "Truly, you'll take anything?" I nodded. And Gu Chengyan nodded too. "Oh, that's wonderful. You wouldn't believe how many flowering plants are out in those mountains. But they're different from herbs, the medicine shops won't touch them. So I never dared dig up too many. If you really will take whatever I find, I'll dig them up whenever I come across them. Don't you worry, I won't gouge you on the price." Qingyue arranged with him how often he should come by, and reminded him to keep the roots wrapped in soil so the plants wouldn't die of thirst. Gu Chengyan led me around the market for another turn, and we returned loaded with bounty. Back at the inn, I started sorting through the little treasures I'd bought. Who would believe me? I'd even bought a whole box of stones, all rainbow-hued and gorgeously patterned, so pretty they looked like little paintings. Gu Chengyan said they were called Yuhua stones. I had no idea what Yuhua stones were, but they were absolutely gorgeous, the prettiest things I'd ever seen. "This one I'll make into a pendant. This one I'll weave onto a sachet. These 2 I'll turn into earrings." I picked out one that looked a bit more subdued and held it up in front of Gu Chengyan, gesturing. "Third master, I'll weave this one into a fan pendant for you. Come summer, you can hang it on your fan, how about that?" "That would need to be a mighty big fan." Gu Chengyan chuckled as he said it. I thought it over, the stone really did seem a bit large for a fan pendant. "Well, if it can't be a fan pendant, I'll just weave it for my own amusement and won't make one for you." "Even if it can't be a fan pendant, once you weave it and hang it on the wall or by the window, it's bound to look lovely. If Yuhuan doesn't mind the effort, she can weave a few more. If third master likes them, then of course I'll love weaving them." Smiling, I picked through the stones again, my mind already brimming with ideas. I dug out colorful cotton threads, matched them up, and quickly wove a waist pendant, handing it to Gu Chengyan. "Third master, take a look, is it pretty? Does it match your outfit?" Gu Chengyan took it, held it up against himself with careful consideration, and gave a slight nod. "It suits me well. Let me tie it on for you." His original waist pendant was a fine piece of jade. I noticed the cord had grown a bit worn, so I rewove it with fresh thread. Gu Chengyan praised me. "Yuhuan's hands are truly skilled. I know all sorts of patterns. Third master, just you wait, with this whole box of Yuhua stones, I'll weave something for everyone. Siue and the others will each get one. The guards can skip it, they're all men. Except for Qingyue, who asked for 2 for his younger sister. I set the rest aside, planning to bring them back to the capital for the family. These stones weren't worth much, it was just a small token of affection, a pretty keepsake. Siue fussed over hers for 2 days, then put them away and never looked at them again. Only Gu Chengyan's waist pendant stayed with him at all times, and he even asked me to make a few more in different patterns and colors so he could rotate them. What should have been a few days' journey stretched to nearly 10, with us stopping and starting along the way. Luck was on our side. No rain fell the whole trip, and only as we neared the estate did a fine drizzle begin to drift down. One autumn rain brings a wave of cold, and all the more so when winter is already at the door. In that rain, I could swear I sensed snow mixed in. I lifted the curtain and pushed open the wooden window, and a blast of chill air hit me full in the face. I quickly shut the window and smoothed the curtain back into place. It was freezing out there. But once we reached the estate, there would be heated floors and a crackling fire. We could roast sweet potatoes. My mouth watered just thinking about it. Third master had been here before, years ago, when he came with his mother to stay for a while. The fish in the stream by the front gate were exceptionally fresh and tender, and stewed with tofu. The broth was pure umami. The tofu soaked up all that savory fish flavor and came out silky soft. I couldn't help but swallow hard, afraid I might start drooling, and quickly dabbed at the corner of my mouth. Gu Chengyan laughed. Look at you, all worked up. Once we get to the estate, I'll have the servants catch some fish and cook them for you. Just one thing, don't overindulge. I nodded eagerly, clinging to his arm and coaxing him. Third master, you're the best. 14. The estate was enormous, with dozens of farming families forming a whole village. These people made their living off the estate's land, they worked our fields, and in return gave us a tenth or so of their harvest. They were the Gu family's tenant farmers. And now they'll be my tenants. Are they considered law-abiding folk? Gu Chengyan nodded. The steward who managed the estate was a wiry old man, already past 50. His 3 sons had each started families of their own, and he had several grandchildren to show for it. You could say his house was full of blessings. His whole family lived in a small courtyard right beside the main residence. The news of the third master's arrival had come early, and the old steward had already ordered the entire estate swept clean from top to bottom, with the main courtyard's heated floors stoked and blazing. When he looked at me, he bowed first, then respectfully asked if the young madam had any dietary restrictions or particular cravings. I glanced at Gu Chengyan, who sighed helplessly and said, "Go see if you can pull a few fish from the stream. Stew them up with some Western region's tofu soup, and add a few side dishes. The young madam has no dietary restrictions, just nothing too spicy." The estate wasn't just run by the steward alone. There were also 2 older maidservants and their families, serving as his deputies, so to speak. The whole place was kept spotless, and it felt genuinely comfortable to the eye. The main house had heated floors, and stepping inside wrapped you in warmth the moment you crossed the threshold, cozy beyond words. This room is truly comfortable. In those 10 years on the estate, I had never once stayed in a room this pleasant, and those maidservants had never shown me an ounce of respect. The sweet soup they brought out was delicious too, and the wheat cakes were wonderful, especially when you set them over charcoal fire and let the outside turn crisp and scorched. Sweet with a crackle, fragrant all the way through. The Western fish stewed with tofu was even better. I polished off 2 full bowls. If Gu Chengyan hadn't cleared her throat a few times to remind me, I could easily have gone for a third. "Uncle Hu, are we having Western region's stewed tofu again tomorrow at noon? If the young madam likes it, I'll have the kitchen prepare it. She might also care to try the fried Western fish, even the bones come out crisp and brittle." Hearing that, I was already looking forward to it. I'd eaten the little dried fish my elder brother brought me from outside before, crispy through and through. One bite and even the bones crunched down to nothing. Then tomorrow, Uncle Hu, you arrange it as you see fit. I want to taste all the good things on this table first, then decide which one I love most and have it again and again. Gu Chengyan and I stayed in rooms right next to each other, and this estate didn't use beds, it had heated kangs instead. I'd gone to check. Behind the house, they burned firewood to bake the kong warm through, then laid down the bedding. The whole night stayed toasty and snug. I had barely a single idle day before I was back to reading and learning characters. In that warm, cozy room, I held the 3-character classic and read with total focus, memorizing the shape of every single character. Gu Chengyan said that once I'd read enough and fixed their forms in my mind, I could begin copying them, and eventually move on to writing from memory. I read earnestly. Gu Chengyan sat nearby reading as well, and when I flipped through his book, I could only recognize a few characters. He truly was brilliant, steeped in learning, so impressive. I wanted to study hard too, to know as many characters as he did. I never dreamed of being some literary prodigy. I just wanted the chance to read and write. And I refused to waste that time. Refused to let Gu Chengyan down. You've been reading for quite a while now. Why don't you go out and play? I shook my head. I didn't really want to go outside. It was fun out there. Sure. But if I left, Gu Chengyan would be alone in this room. Third master, would you teach me to play chess? Are you truly not going out to play? I shook my head firmly. It's freezing out there. Better to stay warm in here. Gu Chengyan was silent for a moment, then looked at me with eyes that turned especially tender. His voice was gentle, low and soft. If you want to go play, then go play. At your age, you should be carefree and playful. A little girl like you, how can you keep cooping yourself up indoors? Go on. Go play. Let me have a bit of quiet. I glared at him. Was he saying I was too noisy? And here I was, feeling sorry for him sitting alone in his loneliness. Asterisk he. Fine. Then I'll go play. Asterisk he found me talkative. I found him dull and quiet anyway. I called for Siue and brought along uncle whose youngest son and daughter. They said they'd take me to the stream to catch fish. It was my first time using a bamboo cage for fishing. You set the cage in a gap in the water, then go upstream and beat the water with a bamboo pole. I watched, wide-eyed, as the fish darted frantically downstream and dove right into the cage. It was like magic. It's in. It's in. I couldn't help but ask. Curious. Do these fish breed on their own? Or are they raised deliberately? Hu Xiaomei said. They breed on their own. The fish in that pond over there are the ones we raise. We cut grass to feed them regularly. There wasn't much difference in taste between the wild stream fish and the farmed ones. If anything, the stream fish ran smaller, while the pond-raised ones grew bigger. I wasn't some gourmet critic who could taste a single bite and name every ingredient and the exact heat it was cooked at. I simply wanted to satisfy my appetite, good or not. That was all it came down to. Hu Xiaomei told me she'd been into the mountains before. The woods were full of wild fruit and game of all kinds. Young madam, would you like to go to the mountains? I was curious, but I had no intention of risking it. Forget the deep forests, I wouldn't even walk to the tenant farmers' homes if they were too far from the estate. I didn't like assuming the worst of people, but I knew full well that human nature couldn't withstand testing. I had no strength to defend myself. If a bad person truly set their sights on me, I'd be walking straight into my own death. I had no desire to court disaster. The first time Hu Xiaomei talked about how wonderful the mountains were, I didn't suspect her of ill intent. But when I'd already declined and she kept pressing on about how great the mountains were, I knew her intentions weren't good. It's too cold out. I can hardly be bothered to leave the house. If it were spring, though, I might take a trip into the mountains. I had my excuse ready for spring, too. I just couldn't understand why she would harbor such bad intentions toward me. I couldn't solve her, but I could remove myself. I went back to my room, and when there was no one around, I told Gu Chengyan about it. Third master, what do you think she means? Is she trying to harm me? Gu Chengyan was a man as warm and polished as jade. Rarely did his brow crease, but now it furrowed slightly. He read widely and knew much of the world. Hu Xiaomei's scheming was beyond me, but he would surely understand. He didn't say a single bad word about her, didn't scold her in the least. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Stay 2 more days. Once the weather clears, we'll head back." Third master, why won't you explain it to me in detail? If you don't tell me, I'll never understand, never learn. Next time, I might fall for the same trick again. Gu Chengyan asked me to close the window. I scurried over, shut it, then sat across from him, looking at him with full attention. Do you feel hurt knowing Hu Xiaomei wanted to harm you? I shook my head. No. She and I have no connection. I'm only staying a few days. And then I'll leave. Who knows when I'd even come back. We have no bond. No affection. She didn't succeed in harming me, and I'll keep my distance from her from now on, won't give her the chance. Does that count as wanting revenge? Gu Chengyan asked me again. I nodded. I just don't know how to get revenge. Should I beat her up? Or go tell her father? If I tell on her, will she get punished? I've never dealt with anything like this before. Then you don't need to do anything at all. From now on, Don't run around when there's no need. I'll teach you chess. All right. I nodded obediently at once. Hu Xiaomei came to call for me several more times, but I turned her down every time, using studying and memorizing texts as my excuse. The look she gave me as she left was dark and heavy, unsettling in a way I couldn't quite name. That night, I paid for it with nightmares. I dreamed I was thrown into a deep, wild forest, where wolves and tigers took turns tearing at my flesh, ripping me apart and swallowing me whole. Young mistress, Cus shook me awake in the middle of the night, and I blinked, dazed, unable to pull myself back to reality. It wasn't until Gu Qingyan pushed through the door, a robe draped over his shoulders, that I threw myself into his arms, sobbing before I could even think. Third master, let's go home. It's too terrifying here. If we stay any longer, and I can't hold back, if I say something cruel to Hu Xiaomei, or go tell her father, or worse, take matters into my own hands, none of that is what I want. I've known since I was little that life isn't easy for a girl. If Hu Xiaomei had been born a boy, I wouldn't have shown an ounce of mercy. We'll leave tomorrow. First thing, he said, his voice steady and warm. We won't take the same road back. We'll detour, see some other places. I'll pay a visit to a few old friends and classmates while we're at it. I nodded hard, tilting my head up to look at him. He reached out and wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes with his thumb. Don't cry anymore. Get some sleep. I can't sleep, I whispered. The moment I close my eyes, all I see are those wolves and tigers, claws raised, lunging at me, tearing me apart bite by bite. Then don't sleep, he said simply. I'll have the servants pack everything now. The moment dawn breaks, we ride. Gu Qingyan has always spoiled me, cherished me. When he said he'd stay with me, he meant it. He sat with me by the window, the soft glow of a few candles flickering around us, and taught me how to play a simple game of gamoku. I racked my brain, tried every trick I knew, and still couldn't beat him. So I cheated, started with 5 stones, then 10, 20, 30. Eventually, I swapped the black and white pieces entirely, and even snuck extra stones onto the board when he wasn't looking. It was a massacre, a complete and utter disaster. Third master, I said, pouting, how about you just blindfold yourself? Gu Qingyan looked at me like I was the biggest fool he'd ever laid eyes on. And you think that would guarantee you a win? What if it did? Cue didn't know how to play, but Qingyue did. He knew exactly how to tell Gu Qingyan where my stones were and where his own were. I had 30 extra stones over him, and he still gave me a 3-stone handicap at the start. And after all that, what was left? I stared down at the last stone in my hand, fuming, then hurled it onto the board. I'm done. I'm done, I grumbled, stomping back to the carriage and sitting down beside Gu Qingyan without so much as a glance his way. He let out a low, muffled laugh. I shot him a death glare. You dare laugh at me? I racked my brain, cheated, stole stones, and still lost. He managed to hold it in that time, but Qingyue didn't. The look on his face practically screamed, how could my master ever lose? It was absolutely devastating. Gu Qingyan rubbed his nose. Then next time, I'll let you have a few more stones. That only made me angrier. Though, honestly, I was angrier at myself for not being stubborn enough. We passed through a small town, and Gu Qingyan said he wanted to take me for a stroll. I hopped off the carriage in an instant, beaming as I trotted along beside him, the anger already long forgotten. The town was lively today, apparently because the magistrate's son was getting married and hosting an open-air feast. If you have money, you can bring a gift and eat. If you don't, you can just show up and eat anyway. I looked at Gu Qingyan. Third master, let's go to the feast. I've never been to someone else's wedding banquet. Gu Qingyan led me, with Qingyue and Cue following, and offered a landscape painting bearing his courtesy name and seal as a gift. He didn't announce his name or status, just let them seat us wherever. They arranged a table for 8. The 4 of us sat down, and soon 4 burly men joined us. They'd been loud as thunder when they walked in, clearly ready to eat their fill, but the moment they sat down, They went stiff as boards, barely daring to touch their chopsticks. The dishes on the table, 9 bowls in total, were things I'd never seen before. Gu Qingyan explained that most banquets served what was called 9 big bowls. He only took a single bite of each dish. But Siyue, Qingyue, and I ate plenty. The food wasn't anything extraordinary, but it was a wedding feast. And because of that little filter, I thought it was delicious. The moment we set down our chopsticks, those 4 men attacked the remaining food like a storm, all pretense of restraint gone. They ate with such speed I was genuinely worried they'd choke. Let's head back, Gu Qingyan said. I stood up at once and followed behind him, whispering, they eat so fast. With builds like theirs, they must do heavy labor. Even if they earn good money, they'd never waste it on food like this. A feast this full of meat and vegetables, they probably don't get to eat like this more than a few times a year. Devouring it like that is only natural. Third master, you know so much. Gu Qingyan shifted his body slightly, blocking the cold wind that swept toward me. When you travel more, see more, and broaden your horizons, you'll understand what they mean by the many faces of the world. Third master, when we gave that gift, why didn't we just send silver instead? Gold and silver have a price. Friendship and goodwill are priceless. If I gave 3 or 5 taels, it would be too little to be meaningful. If I gave 80 or 100, it might look like a bribe. A painting of mine, to others, it might be worth a fortune. But to me, it's just a painting. It sounded so profound. But I knew Gu Qingyan was a man of integrity, far above such petty schemes as bribery. I wanted to be like him someday, open-minded, unyielding, and kind in all things. After the wedding feast, we stayed in the town for a night. Gu Qingyan said he wanted to visit an old classmate in a nearby county, a man he'd been close to in his youth, who had passed the imperial exams, earned an official post, and been dispatched by the emperor to serve as magistrate there. I could hear the nostalgia in his voice as he spoke, the genuine longing for his friend. Third master, I said softly. You'll get better. I know you will. Gu Qingyan paused, then smiled and ruffled my hair. Our Yuan is the most special girl I've ever met. What's so special about me? There are plenty of girls like me out there. But it was her who gave me something to hold on to, who made me want to become better, little by little. Gu Qingyan's friend must have been an upright official. From the moment we stepped into the county, I could feel the difference. The common folk, the merchants coming and going, there was a light in their eyes, a sense of hope for the future. When we finally met the man, he was dressed in clothes that were neither new nor old, radiating the air of a scholar. He froze the moment he saw Gu Qingyan, then called out, Mingyu, my brother. Gu Qingyan, courtesy name Mingyu, smiled. The magistrate's gaze shifted to me, and he asked with a grin, Gu Qingyan, is this your wife? Yes, this is my wife. Yuan, brother Han, this is my husband. I immediately bowed. It's an honor to meet you, brother Han. Magistrate Han laughed, clapping Gu Qingyan on the shoulder. You lucky devil. Sister-in-law, please, come in. County Magistrate Han smiled and invited us inside, then sent for his wife. I wrote you over a dozen letters back then, and you never replied. Now that you're willing to step out and see the world, I can finally breathe easy. We men ought to carry fire in our veins. How can we let a single setback break us? Get out there, look around, and opportunity might just find you. This world is full of extraordinary people, and there's no shortage of skilled physicians. The ones I sent to the capital earlier didn't pan out, and I've already sent word to the neighboring counties. Since you're here, I'll have them all summoned. Han, my brother. Gu Qingyan gripped the county magistrate's hand. Thank you. Between us, thanks is nothing but distance. Sister Han was a brisk, open-hearted woman, her laughter loud and impossibly warm. Now that my sister-in-law's here, you must stay a few days. I'll take you around town, and the men can have their reunion. It was the first time I'd seen Gu Qingyan speak at such length. He couldn't drink, so he raised his white water in toast after toast with Magistrate Han. He hadn't touched a drop, and yet I felt like he was drunk. On the way back to the academy, he sat in his wheelchair while Qingyue pushed him. Suddenly, he reached out and took my hand, asking in a low voice, "Yuan, would you ever leave?" "Of course not. Wherever third master goes, I go. If I left him, where would I even go? The world is vast, and I'm alone with no one to lean on. Where could I possibly run?" He wasn't someone I settled for after weighing options. He was the one who came before everything else, the only one, the non-negotiable, the unwavering constant. "I believe in you, Yuan. You must believe in me." I hadn't expected Sister Han to put me and Gu Qingyan in the same room. I couldn't very well speak up about it. Gu Qingyan and I hadn't yet consummated our marriage, and I was still a child. He wasn't some beast. But Gu Qingyan said, "If you go tell the sister-in-law now, it'll only make it look like we're protesting too much. Tonight you take the bed, I'll take the couch." "That won't do. Your body's weak, and you can't stand the cold. You take the bed, I'll take the couch." The only problem was the couch, hard as a board, painful just to turn over on, and cold as ice, no matter how long you lay there. "Third master, can I come sleep on the bed too?" Gu Qingyan was silent for a long moment before his voice came out low. "Come on, then." I immediately grabbed my pillow, dragged my blanket over, and climbed up. Gu Qingyan couldn't move well, so naturally he couldn't take the inside. I arranged the bedding myself, burrowed under the covers, and beamed at him. "Third master, get some sleep soon too." Years later, when I looked back at my carefree, shameless self from that night, I couldn't help but laugh. I've always been easygoing, and that day, being looked after so well beside Gu Qingyan, spoiled by his affection, I grew even more carefree, fed, warm, happy, and content. Naturally, I fell asleep fast, and slept deeply. The only thing was, in the middle of the night, I felt warmth beside me, and somewhere along the way, I'd rolled into Gu Qingyan's blankets. He pushed me back into my own, and I mumbled sleepily, "Third master, is it morning?" "Not yet. Keep sleeping." At that young age, I had no idea Gu Qingyan was lying wide awake. When I woke up, he was already gone from beside me. I didn't think much of it and called for Siyue to bring water so I could wash up. Siyue asked in a whisper, "Madam, did you share the bed with third master last night?" Siyue was smiling very strangely. I had no idea what she was grinning about. When Sister Han said she'd take me shopping, I tossed Siyue's odd behavior aside. We went out, and while Gu Qingyan didn't join us, Qingyue came along. Per Gu Qingyan's instructions, I wasn't to let Sister Han spend money on me. And I couldn't give her anything too extravagant either. A small token was the limit. I could buy whatever I liked, but it had to come from my own purse. I understood that Magistrate Han held an official post, and if Sister Han and I kept buying each other gifts, people might start whispering about bribery. It really wasn't easy. Sister Han clearly knew this too, and couldn't help sighing as we browsed. "Sister, this is actually fine. We walk tall and live upright, and Brother Han's career can only climb higher and higher, from your lips to heaven's ears." For me, going out didn't have to mean buying things. Just being able to wander, to look here and there, was already a joy. Every place has its own customs, its own dialect, its own way of dressing, none of which I understood. Sister Han leaned in and told me quietly, "There are things to watch out for here, what the locals avoid, what they hold sacred. We're only passing through, but we should still respect their beliefs." I thought to myself that in the future, whenever I went somewhere unfamiliar, I'd hire a local to ask. I didn't want to pry into anyone's secrets, but knowing a little more, understanding a bit deeper, day after day, year after year, everything I saw and heard would enrich my life. And when the day came that I could no longer travel, these memories alone would be enough to live on. In the middle of the night, I was drifting in and out of sleep when I heard a stifled, pained sound from beside my pillow. I blinked, sat up. "Third master, is something hurting?" Gu Qingyan gritted his teeth. "The poison's flaring up. My leg aches terribly." I scrambled out of bed to light the lamp, then called out, "Siyue, go find Qingyue." I helped Gu Chengyan sit up, leaning against the headboard, then threw back the covers and reached for his pant leg. He caught my hand. Yuan, let Qingyue do it. Third master. I can. He was a man. And I was a woman. The old saying goes that men and women should keep their distance. But he'd forgotten, he was my husband. And I was his wife. I rolled up his pant leg. His leg, from years of barely walking, had withered until it was nothing but skin and bone. I reached out and touched it. We both hissed at the same time. Cold. Gu Chengyan spoke again. Put your hand back on it tonight. I didn't understand. But I did as he said. I placed both hands on his leg. At first, Gu Chengyan could bear it. But soon his face began to twist. Sweat beading on his forehead. Third master. Ever since the poison took hold, I haven't been able to feel warmth or cold in this leg. At first it was just a dull cold. Then it turned into a biting, stabbing chill. When you put your hand on it, I felt warmth. Is that so? Then that's easy. Once Qingyue had helped Gu Chengyan take his medicine, he looked noticeably better, and he sent Siyue and Qingyue off to sleep, telling me to rest as well. I gave an oh, crawled onto the bed, moved my pillow to the other end, slipped under the covers, pulled Gu Chengyan's leg over, and tucked it against my chest beneath my clothes. Gu Chengyan yelped. Yuan, what are you doing? Warming your feet for you. You, go to sleep. I'm exhausted. Normally at this hour I'd be sound asleep. But tonight, because of his flare-up, I'd had to get up and fuss around for a good while. It was cutting into my rest. Holding a pair of ice-cold feet was a bit unpleasant at first, but once they gradually warmed up, I slipped quickly into dreamland. At some point, Gu Chengyan tried to pull his feet away, which startled me awake, so I hugged them even closer and went right back to sleep. By the time dawn broke, Gu Chengyan was still asleep, a rare sight indeed. In the past, he always rose far earlier than I did. To think he'd actually be sleeping in today. Since there was nothing pressing to get up for anyway, I decided to drift back off. When I woke again, the sun was already high in the sky. Gu Chengyan was playing chess by himself, and when he looked at me, he seemed to hesitate, as if wanting to say something but holding back. Did third master sleep well last night? Yuan. We what? Third master, don't try to lecture me with big principles. I won't understand them, and I won't listen anyway. Just tell me plainly, last night I held your feet. Were you warm? Did you sleep comfortably? It was comfortable. Peaceful. That's enough. There's no need for, but you're my husband. Isn't everything I do for you exactly what I should be doing? Gu Chengyan was silent for a long moment before suddenly asking, you'll marry someone else in the future? Marry who? After living with someone as good as third master, who could possibly catch my eye? Who else would treat me as well as you do? No in-laws to serve. No sisters-in-law to deal with. No mundane household worries. Just reading and writing every day. Living happily and free. No struggling to make a living. No fretting over meals. After living this kind of life, who would want to go serve in-laws and maneuver around sisters-in-law? I certainly wouldn't. I only want to stay by Gu Chengyan's side and help him live a few more years. When he passes, I'll find a quiet place and live out my days alone. And if one day I grow tired of it and truly miss him, I'll go find him. That would be just fine too. Third master, don't say such things anymore. I don't like hearing them. When I set my mind to something, I could be quite stubborn, and Gu Chengyan often found himself powerless against me. Take, for instance, the evenings. I insisted he soak his feet in hot water, and I'd scrub them for him. When it came time to sleep, I'd warm his feet with my own body. Naturally, I had to wash them properly first. Dirty, smelly feet. I wouldn't stand for that. He'd tried to refuse before, but refusal didn't work. He could never bring himself to be harsh with me, and I noticed that his sleep had improved considerably. The dark circles under his eyes were gradually fading, so he could say whatever he liked. I continued doing things my way. He couldn't stop me. He benefited, and I lost nothing. I still ate well and slept well. Qingyue would flash me a thumbs up behind his back. When the 12th lunar month arrived, The countdown to the new year truly began in earnest. Day by day. It was time for us to return to the capital for the holiday. Gu Qingyan mentioned wanting to stock up on New Year goods for the household, so I took on that task myself. Qingyue had experience with these matters. She told me in advance what we needed to buy and how to pick the best ones. I learned as I went, stumbling at first, but eventually getting the hang of each item. The small town had nothing much to offer, but the county seat had better things, and the prefectural capital had truly fine goods. Especially the jewelry at Duobao Pavilion. The gold and silver pieces were absolutely gorgeous, though the prices were anything but cheap. Gu Qingyan picked out quite a lot for me, not caring that I couldn't wear any of it yet. Don't all girls like this sort of thing? I did like them, of course, but I hadn't yet reached the age of coming of age, so I couldn't wear any of it. Still, I could store them away. Once I came of age and could put up my hair, I'd be able to wear everything. We returned to the Gu residence in the capital on the 17th day of the 12th lunar month. Gu madam, seeing Gu Qingyan's noticeably improved complexion, was even more delighted. It's good that you're back. Gu Qingyan had me hand over the New Year goods to Gu madam, with portions sent to each of the household's courtyards. Along with the rainflower stones I'd polished and strung into tassels. The family even specially invited an imperial physician to examine Gu Qingyan and take his pulse. The imperial physician said that although the poison in Gu Qingyan's body had not yet been expelled, his health was steadily improving. If this continued, it would greatly benefit his lifespan. A cheerful mood, a good appetite, and restful sleep, all signs pointing in the right direction. He couldn't promise 100 years, but a few more years of life were certainly within reach. I was overjoyed. Gu madam was equally thrilled, and with a wave of her hand, she gave me a whole box of silver melon seed ingots, telling me to play with them. That box alone held at least several hundred taels, perhaps even 1,000, just to play with. And then another box of jade beads in various sizes and excellent quality. These you can use to pair with your tassel making, she said. I have some other jade pieces lying around. Once I have someone sort them out, I'll bring them all to you. Thank you, mother. I just never expected to find the rainflower stone I gifted to someone lying in the grass of the garden. I remembered exactly who I'd given each stone to and what pattern it had. This one had been for the eldest branch, Gu Qingyan's eldest sister-in-law. Since she didn't like it, I simply wouldn't prepare one for her next time. I restrung the stone with new tassels and hung it by the window. When Gu Qingyan saw it, his brow furrowed slightly. He clearly remembered who I'd given that stone to. And now it was hanging here. There was no way I'd gone to ask for it back. Yuan, he said. Are you angry? I shook my head. Not angry. I never had any real connection with her anyway. We're not even close. It's perfectly natural that she looks down on me. There are so many people in this world, and I'm not gold or jewels that everyone will love me. As long as third master likes me, that's all that matters. Gu Qingyan didn't say much more. He simply sent Qingyue out on an errand, and when she returned, I had my own household registration. My eyes went wide. With a household registration, I was a free person. I could go anywhere I pleased, and no one could lock me away. As long as I had silver, I could buy any number of residences, shops, and estates. On the 17th of the 12th lunar month, there was a palace banquet. I never imagined I'd get to tag along and broaden my horizons. It was only then that I learned Gu Qingyan's eldest sister was married to the current second prince. The second prince had been away on official business, and his wife had accompanied him. No one had ever told me any of this. The second prince had returned to the capital a few days before us, and word had it he'd handled his assignment brilliantly, with the second princess consort playing no small part. If you'd like to go, you may accompany mother. If not, you're free to stay. I looked at Gu Qingyan. And you, third master, will you go? I won't. If third master wasn't going, then I wasn't going either. Neither of us attended the palace banquet. We stayed home and ate hot pot instead. He couldn't handle spice, but I absolutely loved it, tears and snot streaming down my face, sweat pouring off me. It was wonderfully satisfying. If you can't handle spice, wouldn't something milder be better? but you have to try things. And it really is delicious. Once third master's health improves, you can try it too. Gu Qingyan set down his chopsticks and gazed out the window at the plum tree with its budding flowers. His voice carried a hint of melancholy. In this world, only you believe I can shake off this poison and live a long life. I didn't know why he was so pessimistic. I wanted to comfort him, but I didn't know how. Yuan, he said, when spring comes next year, let's move out and live on our own. All right, wherever we go. As long as third master is there, that's enough. I just never expected that before we even sat down to the New Year's Eve feast, something would happen. It started with the eldest sister-in-law inviting me over for a talk. And in that room, it was just the two of us. April. A few maids had called me aside to talk in another room, and he produced a gold hairpin, asking if I thought it was pretty. The pin wasn't pretty at all, at least, not compared to the ones in my own box, but to avoid offending anyone, I lied and said it was. Then he insisted on giving it to me. I tried to refuse, telling him to keep it for his sister-in-law instead, that it wasn't worth much anyway, but he pressed it into my hand regardless. I figured that even if it was ugly, it was still a gold hairpin. I could trade it for silver later and buy plenty of grain with it, so I accepted. To show respect, I said I'd wear it right away. He told me my current hairstyle didn't match the pin, and that I should wait until I styled my hair differently next time before wearing it. That made sense to me, so I tucked the pin into my sleeve. What I didn't expect was that the moment I stepped out of his courtyard, a few old maidservants rushed over to block my path. Third young madam, please wait a moment. Our mistress has lost a gold hairpin. They seized me, pulled the pin out of my sleeve, and put on a show of shock. We never would have thought the third young madam was this kind of person. Our mistress is most magnanimous. If you just go in and apologize to her, this whole matter will be settled. I was stunned for a moment. Then it clicked. They were trying to frame me. You're lying through your teeth. She gave this to me herself. I didn't steal anything. Why should I apologize? They tried to cover my mouth and drag me back into the courtyard. I struggled, swinging my hands and clawing at their faces. I hadn't stolen anything, so why should I be bullied and slandered? These past days, Gu Qingyan had indeed spoiled me into having some spirit, or rather, he'd pampered me into having pride. In any case, they thought they could frame me for stealing a hairpin and drag me back into the yard to control me, but they never expected me to kick up a fuss and hurt people outright. April stood frozen for a moment, then came forward to help. The two of us against 3 or 4, we weren't going to win, but I was the mistress, and they didn't dare actually hurt me, especially when I started shouting at the top of my lungs. They panicked. Third young madam. Third young madam. The commotion grew loud enough that Madame Gu sent someone to summon us. By the time we arrived, my clothes and hair were in complete disarray. What exactly happened? I demanded. He gave me that gold pin himself. I said I didn't want it, but he insisted. Then the moment I left his courtyard, those old maids stopped me and accused me of stealing their mistress's pin, saying I had to go back and explain myself. I didn't steal anything. Why should I have to explain anything? An ugly gold pin like that. I have plenty more where that came from. Madame Gu rubbed her forehead and looked at the first young madam. She quickly spoke up. Mother, it's all my fault. I did give the gold pin to third sister-in-law. It was the nursemaid who misunderstood and wrongly accused her of theft. I cut her off immediately. Watch your mouth. I didn't steal anything. Don't you dare pin the word theft on me. I'd never liked her much to begin with. First she threw away the rain-washed pebbles I gave her, and now this frame-up made me dislike her even more. Mother. She knelt before Madame Gu, putting on a pitiful act as if I were the one bullying her. It's all this daughter-in-law's fault. I failed to manage the people in my courtyard. I beg Mother to punish me. Madame Gu frowned and turned to me. Yuan, what do you have to say? If the servants erred, then punish the servants severely. What do you think? What could I possibly say? And this wasn't even a servant's mistake. It was clearly orchestrated by the mistress herself. Does Mother truly believe the servants were bold enough to do this on their own? Isn't this just the eldest sister-in-law deliberately scheming to frame me and gain leverage over Yuan? Gu Qingyan's voice came from the doorway. I could feel the atmosphere in the hall shift instantly. I felt so wronged that I threw myself into Gu Qingyan's arms, tears streaming down my face. Don't worry. I won't let anyone humiliate you for no reason. This matter will not end quietly today. His voice was still soft and gentle. But the first young madam gasped. Third brother. It's the eldest sister-in-law's fault. Please, grant me this face. Gu Qingyan ignored her, took my hand, and led me to sit off to the side. He pulled out a handkerchief and handed it to me, signaling for me to wipe my tears. I dabbed at my eyes as I heard Gu Qingyan say, Mother, what do you say? Qingyan, Mother, Yuan doesn't understand. Can't see through all the twists and turns. But surely you can see why this happened today. It's because you gave Yuan a manor, a box of silver melon seeds, and a box of jade beads. Someone grew jealous and thought they could bully and control Yuan to vent their own resentment. Madame Gu stood up, looked at Gu Qingyan, then at the kneeling first young madam, and slowly sat back down. Qingyan, Gu Qingyan cut his mother off again. Mother, the reason she dares to scheme and humiliate Yuan so brazenly is simply because I, Gu Qingyan, am a cripple with not long to live. And Yuan has no family to rely on, no one to back her up. Would she dare scheme against second sister-in-law like this? Madame Gu's face turned heavy, heavy with pain, regret, and guilt. Then what do you suggest? Gu Qingyan said. Take the maids and servants in her courtyard down for interrogation. The truth will always come to light. One person might grit their teeth and endure, but I refuse to believe all four of them can hold out under torture. The first young madam's face went pale, her whole body trembling. No, no. She looked at Madame Gu with pleading eyes. Mother, this daughter-in-law was wrong. It's all my fault. I beg you. I beg you. Madame Gu was still hesitating, but Gu Qingyan rose and took my hand. Mother, when spring comes next year, Yuan and I will move out of the estate. We won't stay in the Gu household to be an eyesore, nor will we give anyone another chance to scheme against or humiliate her. This once, I'll let it go. But I must remind you, Mother, does someone with such a vile, malicious heart truly deserve to be the matriarch of the Gu family? We walked out of the room, and from inside came the sound of crying. Gu Qingyan sat back in his wheelchair with an expressionless face. I thought the matter was over, until his eldest brother came by. The two of them spoke about something, and soon raised voices echoed from the study. I was too far away to hear clearly. Then Gu Qingyan ordered Qingyue to pack things up, and told me to pack as well. Aren't we staying for the new year? Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. Gu Qingyan tousled my hair. With Yuan here, it doesn't matter where we spend the new year. Let's move. But this time, we still couldn't leave smoothly. His second brother came to persuade him. I snuck over to listen and heard Gu Qingyan say, his own wife is vicious and selfish, and she even tried to push the blame onto Yuan, bringing up her supposedly cursed fate against her parents. A person who can't tell right from wrong like that, I'm ashamed to be associated with them. But you can't move out today. If you really leave, what will outsiders say? Brother, you've always been calm and composed. Why have you lost all composure when it comes to sister-in-law? After a long silence, Gu Qingyan finally spoke. A wife shares her husband's honor. I've been poisoned and don't have long to live. I'm as good as useless. So they figured, what did it matter if they bullied and toyed with Yuan? Even if I stood up for her, what could I really do? I was no longer the glorious, promising third young master Gu. They could get nothing from me anymore. And worse, they took satisfaction in watching me sink into the mud. She cries a few tears, mutters that she was wrong, and then her parents smooth everything over. Big matters made small, small matters made nothing. But the one who was wronged never even got a bow or a word of acknowledgement. Were they bullying Yuan? No. They were bullying me. They were humiliating me. Third brother's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Second brother, there's no need to persuade me further. My parents are what they are. My brothers are what they are. I accept that. But I will not accept this fate. I may not be able to walk, But my mind isn't broken. And my hands aren't broken. One day, even if I'm dead, they won't be able, to bully me the way they do today. As for them wanting to control Yuan, they'll have to step over my corpse first. I was originally going to let today's matter go, but every single one of you is pushing me to yield. It wasn't my fault, and it wasn't Yuan's fault either. So why should we be the ones to back down? If today's matter isn't given a proper resolution, then I, Gu Qingyan, will sever ties with this Gu family completely. Second brother, I want you to relay those words to them. Gu Qingyan's words weighed heavily on my heart. I shut myself in my room and cried my eyes out. That evening, the courtyard of Gu Qingyan's residence was brightly lit. Gu Qingyan wouldn't let me go out, and wouldn't let me go to the front courtyard either. Siyue ran back and forth, reporting to me, Madame Gu had arrived. Old Master Gu had arrived. Madame Gu's several elder brothers had arrived. And even Gu Qingyan's maternal grandfather had shown up. The family of the eldest young mistress had come as well. I don't know what was said up front, but that New Year's Eve night, we still sat down together for the reunion dinner. Every single person was silent, eating as if the food had no taste at all. The eldest young mistress's face was swollen red on both sides, clearly she'd been slapped, though I didn't know by whom. Gu Qingyan and Gui'er, on the other hand, kept piling dishes onto my plate. I nodded gently, not daring to make a sound. I felt like this New Year's dinner was giving me a stomachache. After the meal, Gu Qingyan and I were about to head back to our courtyard when old Master Gu suddenly spoke up. Third daughter-in-law, come here. Father wants to take a look at you. Gu Qingyan gave a slight nod, and only then did I step forward cautiously, my heart trembling as I asked softly, Father, is there something you need? A few days ago, I had the matter investigated. I've already looked into it thoroughly. It was your eldest sister-in-law who did wrong. I'll have her apologize to you, and then this matter will be closed. What do you think? What did I think? Of course I didn't think that was acceptable at all. Just as Gu Qingyan had said, was she really bullying me? She wanted to indirectly bully Gu Qingyan. If I let myself be controlled by her, would I become timid and fearful? Would I still be able to laugh without a care? To accompany Gu Qingyan without worry? Absolutely not. If I was scared for my own life, I'd have no heart left to care for Gu Qingyan. She wanted Gu Qingyan's life. So no, I would not forgive. There's no need for an apology. She doesn't truly believe she's wrong anyway, so an apology would be meaningless. Besides, I don't really have any relationship with her to speak of, and we won't be having much contact in the future, so there's no need to trouble her with an apology. Father, third young master and I have already agreed, once spring comes, we'll move out. We'll come back often, and you and mother are welcome to visit us whenever you'd like. You can enjoy the flowers and plants I've been tending. Old Master Gu fell silent for a long moment after hearing this. Then he finally said, very well. Then move out and live on your own. As long as you and third young master live well together, that's enough. I never expected that old Master Gu would then offer the 5-courtyard estate on South Street to Gu Qingyan. But Gu Qingyan said, give it to Yuan instead. I don't have many years left to live. At least if something happens to me, she won't be bullied and thrown out of the house with nowhere to go for justice. Old Master Gu's face darkened instantly. Madame Gu, however, quickly said, then give it to Yuan. That estate is big enough to tear down a few courtyards and plant flowers and herbs in. That sounds lovely. Later, I asked Gu Qingyan why he'd suddenly become so stubborn about all this. He smiled and said, if I didn't act a little willful, the one crying right now would be you. Thinking about it, he was right. Without Gu Qingyan fiercely backing me up, who knows how this story would have been twisted by now. I was the one who suffered the injustice first. And now I'd gained a large estate, and from now on I'd be the mistress of my own home, planting flowers, growing valuable medicinal herbs, selling them to make a living. So since I'd gotten the benefit, I decided not to dwell on the rest. On the second day of the new year, the second prince's consort returned to her natal home for a visit. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in the room with Gu Qingyan, discussing how many courtyards we'd tear down to plant flowers and herbs. Over the past 2 years, certain flowers and plants had been selling for high prices in the capital. We could buy them cheaply from outside. I'd carefully nurture them, and then sell them off at a profit. Gu Qingyan said he also wanted to write some calligraphy and paint some pictures to sell, and even wanted to write a few illustrated storybooks. In my early years, I always thought myself too noble to care about money, treating wealth as something filthy. But from now on, I'm a man who needs to support his family. So I'll write a story, a heaven's favored son who falls from grace, then climbs step by step back to the peak of his life. I gripped Gu Qingyan's hand tightly. Third young master, I believe that one day you will stand up again and return to the top. Everyone in this world feels sorry for me, thinks I'm destined to die young. Only you believe I can live a long life and climb back to the summit. Our third young master is so remarkable, of course he can. I didn't know that the second prince's consort had been standing outside the door, listening to our conversation. She left as quietly as she had arrived. Gu Qingyan did glance toward the door. Though, it was only later that I understood, Gu Qingyan wasn't just fighting for me. He was fighting for himself. Once the heavens favored son, everyone had once held him in the highest regard, no one daring to slight him. But because he'd fallen into the mud, his brothers, contempt had extended to his wife. And his wife had tried to bully me the same way, just to feel a sense of accomplishment. It was truly detestable, truly disgusting. Before we moved out, Madame Gu called me over. In front of Gu Qingyan's two sisters-in-law, she handed me several chests, so dazzling with gold and jewels that they practically sparkled. I'm giving these to Yuan. Do either of you have any objections? Mother's things are hers to give to whoever she pleases. The second sister-in-law spoke up first. Eldest sister-in-law, do you feel the same way? Mother, yes. It's quite a haul of treasures. I immediately smiled brightly and thanked her. We moved out of the Gu residence on the 18th day of the first month. Our new home still bore the name Gu Residence on its plaque. The story the Gu family told outsiders was that Gu Qingyan's poison required me to have a large estate to grow medicinal herbs, which was why we'd moved out. As for the false accusation against me, and how Gu Qingyan had nearly broken with the family over it, not a single word of that ever leaked out. After settling into the new house, Gu Qingyan and I discussed it and tore down several courtyards. We even sold the beams, pillars, and tiles for some silver. And now, all that money is under my management. Gu Qingyan said that I'm the mistress of the household now. Everything, big or small, every coin, whether large or small, must be handed over to me to manage. His paintings and calligraphy sold exceptionally well. The shopkeeper from Comfort Gallery came by every single day, arriving full of hope and leaving beaming with scrolls tucked under his arm. His storybooks were also coming along smoothly. The Comfort shopkeeper said the print run would be at least 5,000 copies, and if they put Gu Qingyan's name on the cover, it would easily reach 10,000. The silver from his artwork sat in a chest. I never counted how much was in there, but it was a lot. To me, that was plenty. Many estates had herbs and medicinal plants brought in by sellers, and while I couldn't recognize most of them, Qinglu knew some. But neither of us knew the prices, so we went to the pharmacy and brought back a doctor to help us. We only wanted the rare herbs, the kind of plants that regular apothecaries wouldn't stock. On the second day of the second month, Dragon raises its head day, Gu Qingyan and I trimmed each other's split ends. He complimented my hair for being jet black and glossy, and I praised his for being thick and full. We exchanged a smile, then headed out together to a restaurant for a proper feast, followed by a shopping spree for all sorts of odds and ends. These days, I kept myself busy from morning to night, reading, practicing calligraphy, tending to flowers and plants, and learning massage and acupuncture techniques. In the evenings, I'd watch Gu Qingyan soak his feet, then massage his legs. Gradually, my hands grew stronger, and my pot of 18 scholars camellia finally bloomed, a breathtaking sight. When Gu Qingyan's younger brother came to visit, he was full of praise and even asked to borrow it to show off. I agreed without hesitation. But Gu Qingyan refused. After all, the plant now sat in his study, so the decision was his. Then how about I bring people to third brother's place to see it? He offered. Gu Chengyan reluctantly agreed. In the end, he brought over a dozen people who circled the camellia, critiquing every petal, and even painted it from different angles. 2 days later, the entire capital knew that our household had an 18 scholars camellia blooming with 70 or 80 flowers. Flower lovers came pouring in, so we simply moved the pot to the main hall. I never dreamed that Gu Chengyan would sit at the entrance collecting admission fees, 10 taels of silver per person. When he handed me the money that evening, I was stunned. Over 1,000 taels, meaning more than 100 people had paid to see my camellia that day. Isn't it a bit much to charge them? I asked. They came all this way, shouldn't we at least serve them good tea and refreshments? And for those who wanted to paint, we provided brushes, ink, paper, and ink stones. Do you think the pigments were free? The servants waited on them hand and foot, pouring tea and fetching water. Some who painted slowly even got a meal out of us. Sure, we made money, but not as much as you'd think. And the way I see it now, they're lucky we didn't charge even more for the experience. Gu Chengyan glanced at me and added, "This camellia won't be staying with us much longer." I didn't quite understand what he meant by that. Then, on the third day, someone from the palace arrived, saying the emperor wanted to admire the flowers. Gu Chengyan waved his hand grandly and let the palace attendants take the camellia away, just like that, gone. If the emperor found it beautiful, there would be rewards. If not, we'd get nothing at all. What I hadn't expected was that the emperor would gift us several pots of camellias that hadn't bloomed in years. He said that if I managed to get them all to flower, there would be a handsome reward. And what if I end up killing them? I asked. Once the emperor gives them to you, they're yours, came the reply. If you bloom them, your fame will spread across the land. From then on, anyone with a flower tree that refuses to blossom will likely invite you to take a look. But if you kill them, the world will call you a fraud resting on borrowed glory. It cuts both ways, just do your best. I figured camellias were pretty hardy, even in pots. They hadn't died, and the pots were large with perfectly good soil. So I simply replaced the dirt, tossed in some washed eggshell powder, burned some animal bones in an iron basin, crushed them, and sprinkled the ash over the soil. I watered them occasionally, and for the rest, I left it to fate. On the 12th day of the 3rd month, I turned 15, my G ceremony year. Gu Chengyan asked if I wanted to hold a coming-of-age ceremony. No need, I said. Just you and me. Sharing a bowl of longevity noodles is enough. I don't want to invite the Wang family, and there's no reason for the Gu family to make a fuss over someone like me. Having third brother by my side is the best gift I could ask for. I figured that in this world, aside from my wet nurse and my brother, only Gu Chengyan would remember my coming-of-age day. Even the Gu family had started with a few perfunctory inquiries about Gu Chengyan, then gradually went silent. And Gu Chengyan was still the third young master of the Gu household, the legitimate son of the master and madam. If even he could be slowly forgotten, then what about me, a daughter-in-law married in with no family to back me? Just as I'd expected, my brother Xiong arrived in the capital with my wet nurse, sister-in-law, and nephew on the 6th day of the 3rd month. It took them some effort to find our house. "Nanny," I cried. My wet nurse hugged me, then held me at arm's length to look me over, nodding with satisfaction. "You've grown taller, and your complexion is much better. Nanny, let's sit down and talk." She glanced around a bit nervously, then lowered her voice to ask me something. "In this house, I make the decisions," I told her. "You can speak freely, truly." I nodded firmly. My wet nurse smiled and sat down, taking my hand. "After you left, I decided the whole family should move to the capital," she said. "We won't stay in that other house. Just give us a small courtyard here in your residence. You need people to manage things outside, let your brother handle that. And if there's anything your sister-in-law or I can do around the house, just assign it to us. As for that little one, we'll have to trouble your husband. Nanny, we're family," I said. "No need for such formal talk." My wet nurse beamed even brighter at that. "The young miss has changed since marriage, for the better. Truly wonderful." And I felt wonderful too. Having my nanny, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my nephew here with me. The herb garden and flower nursery had both taken shape nicely. Most of the medicinal plants were rare specimens, some that could only survive deep in the mountains, yet here they were, thriving casually under trees or in corners where I'd simply stuck them in the ground. As for the rare, unidentified herbs and flowers, I didn't bother distinguishing them and just planted them anywhere. My wet nurse praised them all the way through. Even watering was only done occasionally. In the herb garden and nursery, unless I was absolutely certain something was a weed, I left it alone to grow. Who knew, one of those plants might just be the antidote ingredient Gu Qingyan needed. Perhaps it was because I could grow certain rare medicinal herbs that even physicians would send people to ask for my help. I would simply plant them in flower pots, water them once to settle the roots, and leave them under the eaves to check on each day. Once I confirmed they had taken root and survived, I would let them be carried back and charge a tael or two for my trouble. I never went to other people's homes. If someone brought their herbs directly to my door, and they weren't reassured, they could leave a person to watch over them. And indeed, some people truly weren't at ease, sending servants to stand guard. Most of these were life-saving herbs, so it made sense that people took them so seriously. There were also those who sent seeds and asked me to grow them, promising generous payment if I could manage it. Whether others could do it, I didn't know, but when I planted them, they would sprout within 3 to 5 days, then grow strong and vigorous. Once they were big enough, I'd transplant them into pots, and after they grew a bit more, they could be taken away. Nanny worked alongside me every day. Then came the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. It was true that no one remembered my birthday except for Gu Cheng, Nanny Yen, and my brother's nanny. Nanny combed my hair. Gu Cheng Yen acted as my attendant. My sister-in-law cooked me longevity noodles. My brother gifted me a jade plaque of the god of longevity, and my little nephew lisped his congratulations for a long and healthy life. All the people I loved were by my side. That was more than enough. Lunch was prepared by my sister-in-law and the nannies, and in the afternoon, I joined in too, kneading dough, wrapping buns and dumplings, stir-frying a few dishes, and simmering a pot of soup. We sat together, eating and laughing. Gu Qingyan seemed to eat a bit too much that meal. I even worried his stomach might ache. But that night, as we were going to sleep, he actually asked me, "Does Yuan still cook? What would third master like to eat?" Today's buns and dumplings were quite good. Since third master likes them, I'll make them again tomorrow. That meant I'd be even busier, since I needed to learn culinary skills. The quickest thing was still simmering soup. Just toss the ingredients cleanly into a clay pot and let it cook slowly over low heat. While the soup simmered, April watched the fire while I studied my books on the side, managing several tasks at once. By now, word had spread that the third young madam of the Gu household could grow flowers and plants. Often, physicians from out of town would arrive with bamboo baskets full of medicinal roots I'd never seen before. I was even willing to grow them for free, asking only that they take Gu Qingyan's pulse and examine him. If the herbs I grew survived in large numbers, I'd keep one for myself. That was our arrangement. If they weren't willing, I wouldn't force it, though most were agreeable. Some physicians could even offer a few methods for treating the poison Gu Qingyan had been afflicted with, and they were willing to try. Though all attempts failed, it couldn't be said they were complete failures either. Gu Qingyan said the pain wasn't as bad anymore, at least for the first quarter hour of walking. It no longer hurt so much that breathing became difficult. That was a good sign. By the time August arrived, every spot in the residence where things could be planted was already filled with greenery, so we decided to buy a manor outside the city to grow our herbs. We'd earned some silver over these months, enough to purchase a manor and build a tall enclosing wall. Once the manor was bought and renovated, with the living quarters and high walls completed, the Gu household sent word inviting us back for the Mid-Autumn Festival. Thinking about it, we'd moved out for over half a year without ever going back, and they hadn't sent anyone to us either. We decided to return for the occasion. We went back on the 13th of August. The people at the Gu estate were all stunned when they first saw me. I knew I had changed. I'd grown taller and my features had matured. Nanny said I was the most beautiful young lady she'd ever seen. Gu Chengyan had never praised my looks, nor had he ever stared at me in a daze. The people at the Gu estate were exaggerating far too much. The household was still managed by the first young madam, and she was still the same as ever, saying one thing to your face and another behind your back. Some habits never die. Fortunately, we were only staying for 2 or 3 days. On the 16th of August, we'd head straight to the manor. Someone had mentioned introducing us to a physician, praising this person's medical skill as extraordinary, worthy of being called the #1 divine healer of the age. We'd reach the capital around the 20th of August and go directly to the manor from there. Whether it was true or not, both Gu Chengyan and I treated it with equanimity. If you don't hold out too much hope, you won't be disappointed. So we didn't mention this matter to the Gu family either. The 2 small courtyards we stayed in were kept quite clean, though since we'd moved most of our belongings out, the rooms now felt hollow and empty, especially Gu Chengyan's study, which was barer still. Gu Chengyan looked at it, then curled the corner of his mouth into a faint, sardonic smile. He stayed with me in the back courtyard rooms, accompanying me as I read, or he would read aloud to me while I did needlework on the side. My needlework was terrible, I could only sew pieces of cloth together, but recently, on a whim, I wanted to make him a sachet. I thought I could fill it with osmanthus flowers, or if that didn't work out, some medicinal herbs would do just fine. He was reading a travelogue, written with considerable wit and humor. Several times I got so absorbed in listening that I stopped my sewing entirely, and finally I just tossed the needlework aside, walked over to him, lay down beside him, and rested my head on his lap. He kept reading with one hand while the other pulled the hairpins from my hair, loosening my bun, his fingers threading through my tresses. It was just the 2 of us in the room. We were used to being alone together, and we didn't need to fuss over the servants. They could go rest in their quarters or head to the Gu estate's garden to gather osmanthus, whatever they pleased. Gu Chengyan held a teacup in one hand and wound my hair around his fingers with the other, while I half reclined in his embrace, reading the travelogue to him. The book was genuinely well written, but many of the characters were obscure and difficult, and I didn't recognize all of them. Gu Chengyan, when he read, would skillfully gloss over the tricky parts. When I read, I could recite even the most passionate, lingering passages in a flat, matter-of-fact tone that drained all the romance out of them. Gu Chengyan would laugh at that, and I'd start playfully scuffling with him. Second sister-in-law came by just then and caught us in the middle of our horseplay. She stood in the doorway, stunned. She'd never imagined Gu Chengyan would fool around with me like a pair of children. My clothes were still in order, but my hair had come completely loose. I really did come at a bad time. Second sister-in-law, don't leave, wait for me a moment. I immediately got up and, barefoot, hurried over to grab her arm. Gu Chengyan, however, remained perfectly composed. He stood, bent down to pick up my shoes from the floor, walked over to me, and crouched to slip them onto my feet. We'd done this sort of thing so many times it was routine. But for some reason, my face suddenly flushed crimson. Gu Chengyan saluted second sister-in-law. Greetings, second sister-in-law. You chat with Yuan, I'll head to the front courtyard. Third brother, go on about your business. The moment Gu Chengyan left, second sister-in-law remarked, I never imagined you and third brother would be so deeply in love. Third master is the best husband in the world, that's what Nanny told me. She said third master is the finest man in the world, so naturally he's the best husband for me. Second sister-in-law smiled and chatted with me about this and that. I couldn't quite tell what she was really driving at, though I wasn't the sharpest person. I'd been listening to Gu Chengyan read many books these past months, and I'd learned to parse the hidden meanings behind what people said and did in those stories. I thought second sister-in-law hadn't come just to chat with me, since she wouldn't say what was on her mind. Then I'd be the one to complain. Why should third master be treated so unfairly? He was also the old master and madam's own son. Even if he could never bring glory to the family again, he had never brought it shame either. Second sister-in-law, if you have something to say, just say it outright. The study in the front courtyard is completely empty. Third master has nowhere to go. I'll have to go find him and bring him back soon. Second sister-in-law froze. You're saying third master's courtyard has nothing in it. The other rooms do have things. But third master's study is empty. Even though we moved some things out, we didn't clear it completely. But this time when we came back, it was empty, just like my room here. Bare and hollow everywhere. Where did those things go? I didn't take everything back then. Third sister-in-law. Let me go take a look with you. Then let's go. When the two of us arrived, Gu Qingyan had already pulled out a rocking chair and was sitting under the eaves. Eyes closed, gently swaying. Hearing our footsteps, he opened his eyes and looked over at us. One glance was enough for him to understand why second sister-in-law had come. He let out a helpless sigh at me. Second sister-in-law. No need to go look. Please. Go back. It's nothing important. We'll stay 2 days and then leave. Next time, we might not come back for the new year at all. I figured Gu Qingyan's might not was actually a definite no. He would take me to another city and find every excuse in the book not to return. In that case, I'll head back first. Second sister-in-law turned to me. Third sister-in-law. I'll come talk to you another day. All right. Second sister-in-law. She left. Gu Qingyan pinched my nose. You really didn't need to let second sister-in-law know. I just feel for you. Third master. Why do they treat you like this? When you could bring glory to the Gu family, they all held you up on their palms. Now that you're just temporarily trapped in shallow waters, they humiliate you like this. And you, when the Wang family treated you so harshly, I never saw you angry or aggrieved. That's different. How is it different? I thought about it very seriously. They never enjoyed the glory I brought them. They never enjoyed the effort I poured into them. They never gained any benefit from me at all. They don't love me, and I don't love them. They mistreated me, but I never stooped to begging for their love. I lifted my head to look at Gu Qingyan. Third master, you and I are different. Gu Qingyan was silent for a long moment before he let out a sigh. From the day you came to my side, I stopped caring. So he had cared before. He had cared about the way his parents and brothers changed, from the initial pain, to numbness, to eventual surrender. No wonder he had agreed to marry me after we talked. He was saving me, and he was saving himself too. I wrapped my arms tightly around his waist. My voice choked. Third master, I will always be by your side. Don't cry. I'm not crying. My Yuan isn't crying. Gu Qingyan gently patted my shoulder to soothe me. I sniffled, rubbed my face against his clothes, and forced the tears back. Third master, let's go back inside and keep reading. Don't think about the unhappy things. Those people have no eyes. One day, our third master will be famous again, and he'll come back in glory and slap the shame right off their faces. Yuan has grand ambitions. How does Madame Gu handle matters? Then, she gives me gold, silver, jewelry, shops, land deeds, and property contracts, and she does it in front of the entire Gu family. As for why she gives them, I think eldest daughter-in-law. You understand clearly. Eldest brother, don't think that just because you're the eldest son, you can't bear to see your own mother's dowry go to someone else. And as for why third brother ended up the way he is, he was injured and poisoned by that case because he was saving you. As a mother, I admit I can't hold the scales perfectly level, but I never tipped them entirely to one side. Yet look at what you've done these past few years. Look at what the wife you protect has done. Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Gu Qingyan's eldest brother dropped to his knees with a heavy thud and began slapping himself repeatedly. Mother, it's your son's fault. Your son is unfilial. I suddenly found it all rather meaningless. They knew they were wrong, but they never changed. Madame Gu only ever got angry and tried to compensate Gu Qingyan after the fact. But he wasn't a child. He couldn't be appeased just because his parents gave him a little comfort. He was an adult, sharp, deep, and perceptive. If I couldn't understand what Madame Gu was trying to do, how could he not? And Gu Laoyi hadn't said a single word the entire time. They both claimed to love their third son dearly, yet they couldn't bear to truly discipline the eldest son who would one day inherit the household, and that eldest son's wife, who was as foolish as a block of wood. They wanted to have it both ways. So Gu Qingyan took my hand and left without a word. Whether they fought or scolded each other in there. He didn't care. He didn't want to get involved. And he didn't want to ask. Mother gave us those things. Should we take them? Yes. Why not? If we take them, we can live comfortably and freely out there. No need to scrimp and save. How peaceful is that? And if we don't take them, they'll just end up in someone else's hands. I nodded firmly. That's exactly what I was thinking. On the morning of August 16th, we packed everything up and went to formally bid farewell to his parents. Madame Gu's eyes were swollen and red. Gu Laoyi also looked haggard, clearly. Neither of them had slept well. You two must take good care of yourselves out there. If you run short on silver, just send word back home. Chengyan, it's mother who was negligent. Madame Gu grabbed Gu Chengyan's hand, about to cry. Mother, father, if you two are well, Yuan and I can rest easy out there. As for my birthday, just have Yuan cook me a bowl of longevity noodles. Her cooking skills are slowly coming along now. Where did I get cooking skills? I couldn't even shape a decent bun or a proper dumpling. And my stitching lines were crooked. Every time I cooked, I needed several helpers to handle all the important steps. But since Gu Chengyan said it, I followed his lead. Mother, don't worry. I'll take good care of my husband. I knew Gu Chengyan's birthday was at the end of August. And I was more than happy to celebrate it with him. I had been worried he'd be upset after coming back from the Gu residence. But instead he was composing poetry, painting, practicing calligraphy, and drawing picture books, doing all of it without missing a beat. When he was happy, he'd even hum a little tune. I'd worried for nothing. As for that so-called miracle doctor, he was around 40 or 50 years old. He didn't look old, but he wasn't young either. He had arrived 2 days early, and the medicinal root he brought still had a few wilted leaves on it. I'd never seen anything like it before. I decided to plant it first. The miracle doctor said he wanted to watch me plant it. What was the problem with that? Planting herbs was simple for me. Grab a flower pot, add some soil, put the root in, cover it with a layer, water it a little, set it under a tree, done. I nodded firmly. It should recover in 2 or 3 days. He pressed his lips together and took Gu Chengyan's pulse, left wrist, then right, then left again. He didn't say whether it could be cured or not. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, would Madame Gu be willing to come with me to southern Yunnan and cultivate medicinal herbs for me? I shook my head. Wherever my husband is, there I am. What if I could cure your husband's poison? I looked at Gu Chengyan at the same moment she looked at me. There was joy in both our eyes. But doubt too. I didn't fully trust this man's words. Is helping you get those few medicinal herbs to grow really not enough? Far from it. My wife followed me into the mountains to gather herbs and was struck by a strange poison. The medicine I brought is both poison and antidote. When the flowers bloom, I'll collect the pollen as the medicinal guide, that will break the poison in my wife's body. But these flowers bloom incredibly small. Each blossom yields only a tiny speck of pollen, and they're extraordinarily hard to find, let alone cultivate. I received word that the Lady Gu of the capital has a gift for growing flowers and herbs, so I sent someone to inquire. I wasn't convinced, so I decided to come see for myself. Lady Gu, your husband needs an antidote, and so does mine. Truth be told, my mastery of poisons is barely a tenth of my wife's. If you're both willing to come with me to Dianan, within a year I can certainly cure your husband's poison. Tempted. How could I not be? But I still didn't trust him. Gu Chengyan, however, spoke up. We'll go with you. Just like that. She agreed. Not even going to think it over a little longer. Stubborn as ever, let's go. Gu Chengyan spoke again. Then I have no reason to object. Let's go. I also had the divine physician take a look around the courtyard, asking which herbs might serve for Gu Chengyan's antidote, and which might help his wife. After surveying everything, he said solemnly, the herbs needed for Third Master Gu's detoxification can all be gathered from this garden. Hearing that, Gu Chengyan and I gripped each other's hands tightly, moved, and overjoyed. I can prepare the first round of the antidote for Third Master Gu now. I'll give you the prescription. Are you willing to come with me? Of course we were willing. Both third master and I held to the principle. A gentleman's word is his bond. Since we'd agreed, we wouldn't go back on it. I said the same thing again. Look, whatever herbs you need, dig them up and take them with us. Don't dawdle. The sooner we leave, the sooner we reach Dianan, and the sooner I can plant the herbs to cure your wife's poison. The fact that Gu Qingyan's poison could be cured was already the greatest blessing for us. Since it was confirmed, what difference did a few days sooner or later make? My mountain valley does have quite a few herbs, but when it comes to rarities, it truly can't compare to this garden of yours. So I'll shamelessly dig up a few to take back. Then whatever you fancy in this garden, dig it up freely. The divine physician hurriedly gathered the herbs, those needing processing were prepared on the spot, and those that didn't were tossed straight into the basket. We were ready to set out. Gu Qingyan didn't send word to the Gu family about the cure. If it ended up failing, that would only add another round of false hope. So I instructed the nanny, Nanny Zhao, don't let a word of this leak. When we returned with the poison cured, then we'd tell them. The nanny wanted my elder brother to come with us. I refused. The household needed a reliable man to handle the day-to-day affairs. And as for our journey, besides Qingyue and Gu Qingyan, we had over a dozen trusted people, each skilled in martial arts. I only brought one maidservant, Siyue. I had my own hands and feet. I could do plenty of things myself. And if it truly came to it, I could always buy a servant along the way. This trip would take at least a year or two at best, and at worst 3 to 5 years. We wouldn't tell the Gu family about the cure. But we still had to explain why we were leaving. I had Qingyue go back to inform the master and mistress. That was enough. They'd already given up all hope for Gu Qingyan anyway. As for my side, the Wang family, I thought it over and decided I ought to go see my second aunt-in-law. She was the only one in the Wang family who had ever shown me any warmth. But I didn't go straight to her house. Instead, I arranged to meet her at a tea house. When she saw me, she smiled with unusual gentleness. Seeing you doing well, I can rest easy. We chatted for a while. And then she brought up the Wang family. Wang Yusen has married the third prince as a secondary consort. The third prince. Huh. So that so-called high match was just becoming a concubine. That really is quite a surprise. Your father has been demoted. The Wang family hasn't been doing well lately. Do you want to go back and visit? Second aunt. I won't go back. And I'm about to leave on a journey, at least a year or two. At most 3 to 5. When they gave birth to me, they never asked if I wanted to be their daughter. They dumped me in a country estate for 10 years without a single word or care. And never treated me sincerely. I obeyed and married as they wished. That repaid my debt of birth and upbringing. I have no more ties to the Wang family. I inherited their ruthlessness and heartlessness. So second aunt, there's no need to persuade me. Today I asked you here simply to say goodbye. I wish you, second aunt, peace and prosperity in the years ahead, no worries, no troubles. Second aunt's eyes reddened slightly. And I wish Yuan a smooth journey and all her heart's desires. What I wanted most was for Gu Qingyan to be healthy and live a long life. So her words struck right at the core of my heart. Thank you, second aunt. She left. That day, the weather was beautiful, clear skies as far as the eye could see. I asked Gu Qingyan, when we come back, it'll be a rebirth. How do you feel inside? Heaven has been kind to me. He held my hand tightly. And I finally understood why my grandfather had arranged the Wang family marriage for me back then, saying, no matter which daughter, don't rush to judgment. But when the time comes, the one who walks up to you is your destined person. I didn't understand it back then. Now, at last, I do. The hurdle I couldn't get over was my own sinking spirit. My destiny was you. Yuan, your sweet words. But I like them. I didn't know what our departure meant to the Gu family or the Wang family. But to us, it was hope, a new beginning. Still, I feared the wickedness of people's hearts. Gu Qingyan and I discussed it and decided to buy a good deal of cheap but high-volume goods along the way to bring to Dianan, hiring escorts to transport them. On the surface, we were escorting goods to sell for profit. In reality, they were escorting us. We hired 2 escort agencies. Privately, I went to see their leaders and told them that if anything happened, or if Third Master fell, they should protect me and get me out. What I didn't know was that Gu Qingyan had also gone to see them privately, instructing them that if anything happened, they should protect me, and he'd given them an extra sum of silver on top. They say rivals in the same trade are enemies. But these 2 escort agencies' men got along perfectly. Not a single fight. Not even a cross word. The divine physician traveled with us at a leisurely pace for 1 day before he couldn't take it anymore. You too. Please travel on at your own pace. This old man must go on ahead. I knew he was worried about his wife. Shen Yi, please go on ahead. Once he left, we were free to ignore the route he'd planned. We took detours to other towns, sold off our goods, and traded for different ones. And wouldn't you know it, we actually turned a profit. Gu Qingyan and I discussed it and decided to give half of the earnings to the escort guards, thanking them for accompanying us on the detours. Thank you, Third Master Gu. After this trip, we can have a good new year. I'm gonna buy my mother a new cotton jacket and 2 pairs of cotton shoes. And the rest? Someone asked with a laugh. I'm gonna save it up to marry a wife. The escorts roared with laughter, and Gu Qingyan and I joined in. That's just how the world works. Women want to marry a good husband. Men want to take a virtuous wife. And everyone wants a home of their own, striving toward it every day. Out on the road, we had to keep an even lower profile. Beyond those 2 escort agencies, Gu Qingyan also had Qingyue hire the local escort services. They knew exactly which mountain strongholds had bandits, exactly how to get through safely, and it was entirely possible they were in cahoots with them. But for us, spending money to buy peace was worth it, as long as we reached Yunnan safely, especially with Gu Qingyan unable to move about easily. We each had banknotes sewn into our clothing, and we agreed on how to find each other if we got separated. If we ran into trouble, he told me to prioritize survival above all else. No matter what. I knew what he meant by that, between chastity and life. Choose life. I didn't need him to say it. I would. Though we did spend some silver greasing the palms of mountain bandits along the way. The victory was in arriving safely in Yunnan. Yunnan was thick with miasma, and the divine physician had sent someone to wait for us at the city gate. After we sold off all our goods, Qingyue also investigated whether the physician's reputation was genuine, what kind of person he was, what people said about him. It turned out such a man did exist, with a decent reputation. Nearby villagers, whether common folk or wealthy merchants, all sought him out. Once the goods were sold, the escorts had to return to the capital. I bought some local Yunnan specialties for them to take back, 1 share for Gu Jia, 1 for my wet nurse at home, and a smaller portion for second aunt. They had another escort job lined up on the way back, so this trip was worth it for them too. The divine physician's surname was Liao, and he was 43. His wife was just past 30, a woman of stunning beauty, gentle and humble. But despite being such a person, he kept several rooms filled with all kinds of venomous snakes and scorpions. Our lodgings were far from theirs. The medicinal herbs I was growing multiplied from a few varieties to a dozen, then dozens. Gu Qingyan began his detoxification, and the process was agonizing, his face twisted in pain, sweat soaking through his clothes, black blood oozing from the wound on his leg. Bowl after bowl of foul, bitter medicine went down, his hands gripping the chair arms so hard he shattered them more than once. After each session, he loved having me cook for him, whether it was porridge, noodles, or broth. He'd lazily insist I feed him. He'd have me hum a little tune to lull him to sleep, and sometimes he'd startle awake just to check I was still by his side. But he was getting better. His legs and feet wouldn't stay ice cold forever, that bone-deep chill. By the time winter arrived, he could walk around the room for the length of an incense stick. Physician Liao said that by April or May of next year, he'd be fully recovered. He was healing so quickly thanks to the careful nurturing he'd received lately, in both body and spirit. Gu Qingyan had written most of his storybook, every word a gem, every phrase weighed and polished again and again. He brought his characters to life with vivid detail. Love and hate, joy and sorrow, all of it striking a chord. The fickle, pragmatic master and mistress, the ungrateful senior disciple, the black-hearted fellow students, and all the demons and monsters along the cultivation path who killed for treasure. Only his wife stayed by his side through the journey, guarding him every step. In the book, cultivation could extend one's lifespan, even achieve ascension to immortality. The first volume was about attaining immortality. The second, about falling from the peak into the mud, then climbing back from the mud to the summit. I knew he was mapping his own parents, brothers, relatives, and friends into the story. The one beautiful thing that remained in his heart was that I never left him, that I always believed he could recover, and that because I knew how to grow medicinal herbs, I'd drawn physician Liao and his wife to us. On the surface, he seemed all bright and noble, but in truth, he held grudges fiercely and had plenty of schemes up his sleeve. But gold can't be pure, and no one is perfect. Wasn't I the same? I repaid wrongs with interest, schemed and calculated, cold-blooded and heartless. It truly fit that saying, people who share a household share a nature. For our first New Year in Yunnan, we followed local customs, smoked a lot of meat, learned to stuff sausages, and enjoyed steaming hot spicy hot pot. Gu Qingyan couldn't eat any of it for now, but I fell in love with it at first bite, so we always cooked 2 pots. I ate from my own pot and drank its broth, and occasionally he'd sneak a bite from my spicy one, then go red in the face and neck, saying, "Well now, that's got its own charm." I figured once his poison was gone and he was truly better, he'd develop a deep, unabashed love for that spicy hot pot. Another New Year rolled around, and I was nearly 16, but my monthly cycle still hadn't come. Madame Liao took my pulse and said I was perfectly healthy. These things happen in their own time. I felt the same way. So when my period finally did arrive, Gu Qingyan held me like the sky was falling, shouting in a panic, "Someone! Fetch the physician! Fetch the physician!" I was groggy and confused why he was so frantic. I just felt something wet around my bottom, and there was blood on his hand. "Third master, are you hurt? Is it you? Is it me?" We both froze for a moment before it dawned on us. "Oh, it's just my period." It was awkward, but Gu Qingyan let out a huge sigh of relief, went to wash his hands with a grim face, and came back to the room still frowning. Once I'd cleaned myself up, he asked gently, "Does your stomach hurt? Tomorrow I'll ask physician Liao what we need to be careful about. No cold or raw food. Nothing greasy, just rest well." I didn't have unbearable cramps, just a heavy, dragging ache. I'd get through it in a few days. Gu Qingyan pulled me into his arms and said in a low voice, "You scared me half to death just now." Reaching out and touching a handful of blood out of nowhere, I was terrified I'd done something wrong. "What does that have to do with you? This is your first time with something like this. And besides, you're still young." Actually, I wasn't that young. I was already 16. And some girls my age were already mothers. Gu Qingyan and I hadn't yet consummated our marriage. He always thought I was still too young, so I let him keep thinking that. His body hadn't fully recovered either. Waiting another year or 2 before we shared a bed wouldn't hurt. We both had each other's best interests at heart, each with our own plans. My wet nurse had taken excellent care of me in my early years, though I'd gone through a few hard months back at the Wang household. That passed quickly, and after marrying Gu Qingyan, life became even more carefree and comfortable. My health was solid, so once my period ended, I was back to my energetic self, growing all sorts of medicinal herbs for Madame Liao from wherever she scrounged them up. Gu Qingyan didn't seem like someone still recovering from poison. He was cheerful every day and even asked if I wanted to study medicine with him, learn to make poisons. I shook my head. Knowing some herbs and their properties was enough. I was already busy every day. I couldn't spare any more time. By June, Gu Qingyan's poison was completely gone. Physician Liao said that with some nourishing medicinal soups and a year or so of care, he'd be perfectly healthy. I was so happy I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Gu Qingyan gently wiped the tears from my face and asked if I wanted to return to the capital. I didn't really want to. Dianan was still so joyful. Going back meant rules and restrictions everywhere. So we decided to stay in Dianan until the spring of next year, one part to nurse my health, and another part because the second volume of the illustrated storybook needed to be written. When spring came, I would go back and visit those reclusive scholars, walk once through the official world, and fall from the pedestal. Only then would I realize that officialdom wasn't the only path in life. Before long, Gu Chenyan's storybook was circulating everywhere. And once people learned it was his work, within just 10 days, it swept the entire nation. Countless readers were waiting for the next volume. The shopkeeper sent someone all the way to Dianan, saying the letters he'd received could fill several rooms. He asked when Gu Chenyan would release the second volume, and, most importantly, when they would split the profits. It was simply explosive. Every scholar carried a copy. If you hadn't read this book, you were ashamed to even associate with the literati. Quite a few failed examinees even followed the protagonist's example, deciding to bury themselves in study for another 3 years and try again. Everyone was talking about Gu Chenyan. Everyone praised Gu Chenyan. And naturally, some said he'd married a good wife, that a husband's glory and a wife's honor were exactly this. Dr. Liao came by every single day to ask when the next volume would come out. He was, aside from me and Qingyue, the very first to know the story's direction, and the smugness on his face was absolutely unbearable. Somehow, our whereabouts leaked. People began arriving in Dianan with lavish gifts and name cards, requesting an audience with Gu Chenyan. He refused them all, no matter who came. He saw no one and accepted nothing. His poison had already been purged. Now, he was slowly picking up his sword again to practice martial arts. He had always known how to fight, and his horsemanship had been superb, but the poison had forced him to abandon all of it. Now that he was reclaiming it, the first few days were genuinely grueling. But he gritted his teeth and pushed through. And gradually, it all came back to him with growing ease. That elegant bearing, that jade-like grace, it was truly mesmerizing. The name cards kept piling up. Carriages full of women parked outside our courtyard, each one perfumed and fragrant. Cue was absolutely furious about it. "Madam, how can you feel nothing? They're all staring at our third master. Aren't you angry?" "Why would I be angry? If Gu Chenyan wanted to abandon me, I wouldn't cling to him. I'm not so dependent that I couldn't live without him. After all, he was the one who first taught me that a woman should stand strong, hold herself with dignity, and respect herself. Before loving him, I love myself more. He loves me and treats me well, so of course I love him and treat him well in return. If he ever changed his heart, I would withdraw my affection without a moment's hesitation. I know how to grow medicinal herbs. The world is vast, there will always be a place for me to stand. I am no longer that Wang Yuan, locked in a courtyard, forced to share a residence with a concubine's daughter. People often say a phoenix rises reborn from fire. I may not compare to a phoenix, but I am growing, little by little. I can read. I know herbs. I can plant flowers and tend medicinal gardens. I can cook simple meals and do basic needlework. I am not inferior to anyone. So if those women have their eyes on Gu Chenyan, that just means they have good taste, because he truly is outstanding. That said, I'm certainly not about to hand him over willingly or start calling them sisters and inviting them into our home. Those name cards addressed to me, I ignore them all. Those visitors, I see none of them. What I didn't expect was that Gu Chenyan would be even more impatient than I was. We should leave. A wife follows her husband. He said go. So we go. He wanted to visit reclusive scholars. I wanted to taste the local delicacies of every region and experience the customs of every place. He was moving forward, climbing higher. I couldn't stay still. At this age, when I should be striving, I refused to simply sit back and enjoy the fruits of someone else's labor. I won't stare at the sky from the bottom of a well, drifting through life without purpose. I know people say I'm lucky to have married Gu Chenyan. They whisper that I was born under a fortunate star. Others say I must have cultivated blessings across several lifetimes. Those are just words of envy and jealousy, people who can't touch me, so they try to wound me with their tongues. I won't stoop to their level, and I certainly won't let it upset me. The man they desperately want but can never have sleeps beside me every night, dotes on me, and loves me. I should be generous. Perhaps I'm too generous. Because Gu Chunyan often sulks about it. He thinks I don't care enough about him, and he's afraid I truly don't want him anymore. Women are supposed to uphold the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. They expect me to follow those rules. But he holds himself to an even stricter standard. He doesn't speak more than necessary with other women. He never spends time alone with any of them. He never shows the slightest hint of pity toward another woman. His eyes stay cold. His face stays stern. Gradually, those women realized Gu Chunyan was an unyielding block of iron. He gave no one any chance to melt him. And it seemed the Gu family had also noticed that he no longer carried the family's rise and fall on his shoulders the way he once did. He didn't even want to return to the capital. Instead, he took me to visit one great scholar after another, bought a residence wherever they lived, and stayed a year or 2. Then he'd find another reclusive master somewhere else, buy another house, and settle in for 3 to 5 years. He even sent for my wet nurse and my older brother to come live with us. If Mother Zhao hadn't insisted on staying in the capital, she would have been brought to our side as well. Gu Jia wrote many letters begging him to return to the capital. He refused every time, citing poor health. Poor health. My foot. Since my 17th birthday, the day we consummated our marriage, he's been tormenting me to death several times a month. And I've discovered his jealousy burns hotter than anyone's. If I step out of the house and don't return by evening, he won't say a word about it, but I won't get a wink of sleep that night. What else could that be called? I know he doesn't want to go back to the capital. And I understand why Gu Jia keeps urging him, again and again, because his fame has grown far too great. After his first storybook sold out, he wrote another one. A poor scholar who climbs step by step to the pinnacle of life through study and the imperial examinations. That one gave every impoverished student a glimmer of hope. Now he was writing his third, a story about an ordinary nobody who rises to become a general, guarding the border and protecting the homeland. When news of the Wang family's downfall spread far and wide, someone deliberately brought it to my attention. At that time, I was 20 years old, 4 months pregnant. Gu Chunyan looked at me with some concern. Yuan. I looked back at him and smiled. I'm fine. And I truly was fine. I hadn't thought about the Wang family in a very long time. Every day, I was busy reading, writing, planting flowers, tending herbs, and at night, dealing with Gu Chunyan. Where would I find the time to dwell on irrelevant people? What do you want to do? Gu Chunyan asked. Let's make a trip back to the capital. I said. If they're to be executed, I'll see them one last time, to fulfill this thin bond of kinship in this life. If they're to be exiled, I'll give them some silver, to repay the debt of raising me. If they're stripped of their rank and made commoners, I'll still give them money, and then we'll part ways forever, never to cross paths again. The most important thing was to see the verdict with my own eyes. After all, the hardest debt to repay in this world is still the debt of human affection. Gu Chunyan needed to return to the capital eventually. He couldn't just keep hiding from the Gu family forever. He hadn't done anything wrong. So we made our way back to the capital at a leisurely pace, taking our time. The Wang family's crimes were extensive, and the third prince in particular had entertained the reckless ambition of staging a coup and seizing the throne. Wang Yusin had been his consort, so how could the Wang family possibly be clean? Not even remotely. Whether the second uncle had been involved, I couldn't say for certain. It took us a month and a half to reach the capital. There was no helping it, we had no choice but to go straight back to the Gu residence. And that's when you realize, when you have enough standing in the world, even your own family treats you differently. Madame Gu didn't need to say much. She took my hand, her eyes rimmed with red, and said, "You're back. And that's what matters. Now that you're here, don't think about leaving again. What good is the outside world compared to home? You're carrying a child. The finest imperial physicians and midwives are all here in the capital. I'll arrange everything for you properly. Your courtyard has been cleaned and maintained every few days without fail. The maids and matrons are all personally trained by me. I'll hand over their deeds of sale to you shortly. If any of them don't serve you well, You may sell them off as you see fit. And truly, you can't slap a smiling face. Madame Gu had never wronged me. So I responded with proper courtesy. Thank you, mother. And thank you to the whole family for all your kind words. As she spoke, Madame Gu glanced toward Gu Chengyan, who was sitting with his brothers a short distance away. Her eyes instantly flooded with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. She gripped my hand tightly and asked, "Nearly 5 months along now, are you feeling any discomfort? Is there anything you crave to eat? Does the baby move much?" Throughout the journey, I've been able to eat just about anything. The baby has been quite well behaved, not fussy at all. It's a sensible little one. Gu's eldest sister-in-law sat nearby, shifting restlessly as if needles were poking her from beneath the seat, squirming this way, then that. The second sister-in-law, by contrast, wore a gentle smile the whole time, sitting quietly and listening as I spoke with Madame Gu. Gu Chengyan turned his head and looked at me. The moment I glanced his way, he rose and walked over, coming straight to my side. "Are you tired?" he asked. "Let me take you back to rest first." "I'm not tired," I said. "If you are, just tell me, and I'll speak with mother." Everyone in the Gu family knew the truth of things. They knew Gu Chengyan had been poisoned by his own kin and abandoned, left to die. They knew the eldest sister-in-law had framed me and suffered no punishment whatsoever. They knew his study had been stripped bare, his front courtyard left hollow and empty. And they knew that when we first left the capital, no one had asked after us or shown the slightest concern. But people have to keep moving forward. You can't stay anchored to the past forever. Holding on to all that bitterness and pain serves no one. It's simply not worth it. Our courtyard had been tidied to perfection, clean, fresh, with nothing missing. Everything was in its proper place. I sent Siue to take a look at the front courtyard, and when she returned, she reported, "The study is full of books, writing brushes, ink sticks, paper, and inkstones, all present and accounted for. The ornaments are all fine pieces, quite elegant." I clicked my tongue twice in appreciation. Later, Gu Chengyan came back and told me about the Wang family situation. The third prince had been stripped of his title and reduced to commoner status, imprisoned at the imperial mausoleum. All the others implicated had been exiled to the frontier, an act of imperial mercy, so they said. "Then we'll go see them on the day they depart," I said. The Wang family left the capital in October. As fate would have it, it fell on the very same day as my wedding anniversary. I was 7 months pregnant, my belly round and heavy, as I waited for them outside the city walls. The once proud Madame Wang now had hair of pure white. She looked haggard and aged beyond her years. When she first saw me, she didn't recognize me, but when she finally did, she kept muttering under her breath, "Wrong, wrong, it was all wrong." Wang the elder's eyes were red-rimmed. I handed him a money pouch, some loose silver inside, along with a 1,000-tael banknote. "Consider this repayment for all the years I ate at the Wang family's table." His mouth fell open, and his hands trembled as he took it. He tried to say something, but I had no interest in hearing it. I walked straight over to the second aunt instead. The second aunt, by contrast, was calm and composed. When she saw me, a look of genuine joy spread across her face. "Yuan," she said. "Second aunt, I've prepared some medicine pills for you. They're all in that carriage over there. There are also clothes, bedding, and various other essentials. The man driving the carriage knows a bit of medicine and martial arts. He'll look after you along the way. I've already greased the palms of the escorting officers, so you can ride in the carriage with your sister-in-law, the girls, and the children. When you reach the desolate northern lands, I've set aside some silver for you. Spend it where needed, don't be stingy. And when the emperor eventually grants a general amnesty, you'll be able to return. This is all I can do for you. Anything more is beyond my reach." The second aunt couldn't stop crying. You child. Second aunt, take care of yourself on the road." She nodded. Gu Chengyan helped me back into our carriage to head home. Behind me, Madame Wang kept shouting my name, "Yuan, Yuan," over and over. I didn't turn around. I didn't even look back. And in my heart, There wasn't the faintest ripple of emotion. I truly am a cold and heartless person. Gu Chengyan wrapped his arm around me. You have me. You have our child. I'll never mistreat you. Let's go home. I leaned into his embrace and nodded firmly. Let's go home. The carriage swayed gently along the road. I lifted the curtain and looked outside. The weather was beautiful, bright and clear. Just like the year I married him. He had chosen me with unwavering certainty, and I had chosen him the same way. Through this journey, we had supported each other, walked hand in hand through every trial, and in the years to come, many, many more of them, we would live the same way. He would not leave, and I would not abandon. We could follow each other's lead in perfect harmony, and we could also stand as our own independent selves. We were a family, and we were also two complete individuals. I love him, and he loves me, and as long as that love remains, happiness will follow us forever.